Hi, everybody, welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And today is Level 1, Lesson 4, all about organic and inorganic beings. I'm always very clear each time I present my work that it's not going to be hijacked or taken out of context. Because, of course, our world, when I originally created this curriculum and started with certain vocabulary words, was very different 10, 11, 12 years ago than it is now. So I really want to make certain that no one will ever, listen to my videos or access my class and think that I'm promoting in any way the idea that you should step aside and have something that is not alive, semi-alive, digital, or not organic step inside of you. No, no, no. I do not want you to do that at all. Because now in this perilous moment, perilous cultural moment, where humanity is kind of poised on a cliff, almost going over into full-on transhumanism. Here now, people often use the word organic to denote the timeline. You must mute yourself, 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 mute yourself. Thank you. People use the word organic to denote the timeline that is not infested with technology, not connecting your brain to an AI or a computer in some way, remaining and celebrating the biological state that we all naturally have, that is a container for our consciousness and that miraculously integrates with the larger time structure and propels us through time. And in the modern usage, inorganic is something that would be like a computer system, an AI, a digital presence, something that's on a microchip, something that's a quantum computer, something that's, I don't know, a magical box, that computes and does things, whatever it's made out of. And that is not what I'm proposing at all. So in my original teachings, I talk about organic versus inorganic, and I use the word inorganic in order to talk about something that is more accurately non-biological. So let's use that distinction in this class. Have biological form, an aspect of yourself that is part of the natural world that you can perceive with your five senses, and it has all of the traditional qualities of what science in your world on Earth's surface describes as the qualities of life. Like your cellular body has a metabolism. Food goes in here, energy goes in, and then kinetic energy comes out, and other things come out too. That's metabolism. You also respond to stimuli. Like if somebody pokes you or whatever, sticks fire on you, you'll say, "Ow!" You're clearly alive. You eat, you excrete, you reproduce. Definitely. I would have to have a whole birds and the bees talk. You know where babies come from. You reproduce. And these are the hallmarks of life. That's what your biological presence does. But you also have another aspect of yourself that is as much an aspect of yourself as your biological presence, but it is ephemeral. It's not something you can weigh on a scale. It is much more difficult for you to be able to talk about it with other people, quantify it, measure it, or receive assistance for it, or something like that. If it's unwell, it is an aspect of your consciousness. It's an aspect of your connection to the time field. It is your chakra system, and it's also your chakras are alive. We've been speaking about them in this semester so far as if they are abstractions. And these abstractions are, something that it contains information, represents time, has a motion, has a propelling motion, and an impact on your perception of like how much you perceive in a moment, the frame rate of reality. But we haven't yet really spoken about these chakras on your body as actual alive presences. And we've already in this class, in this semester, delved into the concept of the negative habitation of residual presences that live on the membrane over here. And we jokingly call those putis, as always, with loving recognition from Pedro, who came up with that acronym for us, but the pesky occupiers of the interstices. But these presences are a completely different presence than something that is living on the interstices. It is the chakras themselves. So to be really clear, you have the larger time presence, and the larger time presence is an alive animal. So time is alive. And that is like the fabric of time, the tapestry of time, the series of events, and the metabolism of how energy flows through that very, very giant overarching time field that it could be overwhelming to you if you were to perceive the whole entire time field at once. I'm sorry, I'm getting so many distractions. I'm having so many things with people like coming into the meeting late and other things like that. So I'm having a lot of difficulty focusing. So it actually does help me if you guys are able to arrive to the meeting on 10. Your chakras themselves have personalities. They are 100% benevolent in what has been happening in our world right now regarding types of unmentionables. There are some things that have been coming between each individual and your natural DNA structure and your natural chakra structure. There have been things that have been coming between you as the inhabitant and owner-occupier of your body and the loving presences of the higher dimensional aspects of self that are your chakras. So these also, I will stumble over my language a lot because it is difficult to describe the relationship that you have with these chakras. They are not fully other. They actually are self. But you guys already know how much I rail against flawed New Age shadow work, which is when people look at other as if it is self erroneously misidentifying with aspects of psychopathology that are not actually innate to one's being, but which one is tortured and coerced to the breaking point to identification with those aspects of self just for a cessation of the incredible torments that those pathological aspects of the larger time field have been perpetrating upon you as an individual. So please do not break your boundaries, even though it's like crushing you, trying to crush you like an egg. Do not break your boundaries. Do not break down and identify with or claim ownership of, or I'm always making like a gesture of like hugging and encompassing and bringing to you aspects of personality or events that are purely erroneous, mistaken, that's not who you really are. So because right now I have to make a distinction about all the things that you're not, because I don't want you to be like, well, I watched a Rose class and now I'm going to like align with all of these garbage things. I'm like, no. Don't align with garbage things. No garbage. You have to even know, many of you, that there is stuff that is non-garbage because our world has become so garbage. Right? And that garbage has been very intentional to distance you from your connection to self. So this is also the part in the semester when I make a firm assessment and proclamation that you're a full spectrum human. So it's why I call this class Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, because you are not usually before, I know I'm fragmenting, when I first started giving this class way back in, let's say, 2012, 2013, the languaging around people's journey was more like talking about my lower self versus my higher self. And you might have seen some of the memes that came out of that time, where there's like, some kid on a roller coaster. And he's like hanging on with white knuckles, making some crazy face, and his hair is blowing back. And then there's like, someone sitting next to him very, very calmly. And they're not, perturbed at all by the actions of I want to say motorcycle, I don't know why, roller coaster. And in the meme, the kid is like, me or my ego, and then the super calm person sitting next to him on the roller coaster is like my higher self, right? And this whole false dichotomy of you have the presence of yourself that is here on earth having wildly destabilizing experiences and just barely hanging on and trying to get through all of them, and then into contrast you have your higher self who's like calm, cool, and collected, and is like, oh yeah, whatever, blithe, hand wavy, even at times, like just go down there and do your earth thing, like I'll just be here basking or whatever. And that's false dichotomy. All right, so we kind of wipe that away. And I don't even know if I characterized enough people's sense of their higher self, because the higher self is also, it's kind of basky, but it's also kind of like, go do impossible things. Like, just like I'll need some impossible things done. You just go get it done. Okay, I'll just be here in the higher world. And then you're on the ego level and you're like, well, I need like money, I need car insurance, I need to do all these different things. I have these directives from my higher self. Okay, but that's the old humorous, of course, Aurora's Comedy Hour way of portraying it, the way that people were looking at things. I've done a lot of work and encouraged people to change, and people have really grown, changed, and resolved. And I'm pleased to see that. Now the conversation is very different. Please mute yourself. Yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Yes. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. I am not going to accept this. You have to mute yourself. Don't do that to me, guys, because it really throws me off my game. Hopping in and out of meetings and then hopping in and not muting yourself is not acceptable behavior. Please don't do it anymore. Thank you. Gotta get back to where my mind was, which is not always easy. Like, it's a Jenga tower in here, guys. Just like, try to help me out. Don't destabilize my mind. All the things that I'm trying to get through and say to you accurately today. Okay, so refocusing back to higher self and lower self. The higher self is not a totally separate and distinct aspect of you. It is totally a part of you that you've been artificially separated from. And now people have done the work of the past 10 years or so at accessing and integrating and redefining themselves as, I am that too. All right, so that's the idea. Full spectrum humans that at this moment in the class, I'm reminding everyone or telling you, if you're a newcomer to the class for the first time, that you are a full spectrum human. Where's my sculpture? Let's get this right here. All the way from red, which is your biological physical presence that I was just talking about earlier, all the way up through these ephemeral layers to your divine connection, or the zeroth dimension, or that impossibly fast, infinite moment or place or wormhole, the singularity. You are all of that, all right? And the recognition of and mastery of all of these levels of self is essential for your attainment as an ascended master. And you are an ascended master when you are able to align with this central core timeline that goes up the center here and stay on that timeline and live as a knowing extension of divine intelligence, and then like ding, 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 return back to the place that emitted you, or the origin point that is also your destination, and make a complete circuit. These are all of the goals that you have as an abstract consciousness, okay? And you're supposed to have help and assistance in that journey along the way. So the kind of trope of like having a guardian angel or someone or something that's looking over you in the higher world, like that's apt. Although, of course, it's very flawed and there's a lot of mythological nonsense around it. So don't get stuck in any of that. But there is a sense of, is there a different viewpoint watching me while I am in my mundane, presumably, what's the word, like frivolous or nonsensical challenges, but is there someone up there caring about me and my like quest for toilet paper, my epic quest, whatever, to get coffee or whatever is the vital staples of your life. And I really always affirm to all of you guys in this class that the things that you do throughout your day, especially right now during this ongoing ascension experience. These are not small gestures or meaningless, innocuous tasks that you have to accomplish and perform. These actually are really important in the sense of weaving together and rectifying the larger time field. So it actually really does matter whether you get to the store and get that toilet paper, or whether whatever you're able to get your dog's flea medicine, or any of these small things. Like, you might think to yourself, like, I'm just such a stupid person. Like, I'm riding on the roller coaster of life. I need flea medicine. I need toilet paper. I need this. I need that. You might feel out of control and very small. But I want you to know that although you are surfing the probability waves of very, very larger cosmic time events, your life matters. And you have an enormous amount of power from the position of being where the traction actually happens. Like, where you are literally the person walking around on the ground. You are the point of interaction where all of these abstractions, everything that is above red is an abstraction. It is not yet materialized. And all of those layers of self or cognitive points of awareness are not able to access reality. They are more along the lines of what you would consider a disembodied spirit, although these are not putis or ghosts or echoes, but they don't have a powerfulness. Like, if you had something in reality, like, they would not be able to pick it up. They would not be able to scoop up a lasagna sculpture and hold it and, like, let's say, lift it up and carry it down the street. They're not powerful in that way. So if you want to lift up an actual physical object and carry it down the street, you need a person. You need a biological structure. This is the value of who and what each one of you are or is. You also have to claim ownership of all of these other levels and layer of being. They are you, but they are also your coherent family of light. All right. So a lot of the things that we've been talking about with the negative stuff is false light and things that block out true light. But today, let's talk about it as if in a pristine system, which is where I really wrote this curriculum from. Let's talk about what your coherent family of light is like. So first of all, just like the edge of the lasagna has this sine type of wave, like up, down, up, down, up, down. That is what coherent light is. In a laser beam, the laser beam looks like a straight line, but it's made of many, many, many of these little waveforms that all stick together. That is the coherent family of light. And that is what your chakras are supposed to be. They're actually supposed to be this perfect waveform that goes up and down your body, up and down your body, and that also weaves through your body and connects you to the larger time field and bodies to other bodies. So it's a very, very large coordinated time event that there's the, again, to re-emphasize, the overarching living time field that is a living presence pattern. And presence pattern is really divine intelligence. Then within that, you have series of events that flow through embodiment humans. And the embodiment humans are people like you and me. And we have these energy centers that are abstractions that run in conjunction with who and what we are. A big part of this is recognizing that you have common goals. Your biological self and your non-biological self have common goals. You want to stay alive, and you don't just want to stay alive in a super crappy way. You want to stay alive and thrive and feel amazing. So you want to have longevity and coherence. Longevity is just like a laser beam. You know, if you have a laser beam, if it is powerful enough, it will go all the way from here to the moon. It can go all the way from here, you know, whatever, across space. It's a very, very powerful form of light. It does not disperse. So it has longevity. It keeps on moving through time. And coherence means sticking together, or a unified approach, or complementary, harmonious amplification and unified approach. And the coherence has to do with working together. So when I'm going to show you pictures now, picture pages. Oh my goodness, wait, I'm going to share the screen. I don't know what's going to come up, guys. Okay, first of all, not that bad. Let me just collapse stuff away. Collapse stuff away. Oh, let me make these pictures quieter. And we can collapse this away. And collapse this away. That's not that bad. Collapse this away. This was supposed to go out. I am not going to touch emails right. These are pictures of your chakras. All right. and they're both very accurate. This one over here is an etching that I did on a type of scratch board. And then I just had to augment the colors a little bit once I uploaded it as a JPEG, but that's pretty accurate to what the piece looks like. And it is a beautiful, accurate piece where we've got really not a full 4 vortex. We've got 2 vortices, one at the top and one at the bottom. And this allows you to be able to see how these chakras are oriented. You have this red one that is oriented vertically. And then in here, we're going to make this bigger. In here, you've got the violet chakra, and the violet chakra is also oriented vertically. All of the other chakras are oriented horizontally. And so the energy flows in a very, very specific pattern that is just like how energy flows into Earth's magnetosphere. Oops, let me make this a little smaller. It's not going to work for me. There we go. In through the top, just follow my cursor. In through the top, and then it swirls around like almost like an angel's halo at that orientation. But then it goes around the face, and then it goes around the throat, and then it goes around the heart, and then it goes around the solar plexus. Then it goes around the lower abdomen, and then it goes around the root chakra. And then it also does the complementary journey from the root chakra all the way up through the emotions, through the intellect, through the heart, through communication, through deep insight and inner knowing, to this abstract connection to the divine, and then up and out. Yes. So those patterns that it's flowing in, those are the laser-like coherent patterns. It's the stick togetherness of the chakras themselves, but then it's also how the chakras are interconnected and how that light flows through all of those connections. So this one on the right is more complex. It's a little bit more challenging visually for you to be able to see what's going on, but this is a super accurate piece. So I'll make it a little bit larger so you can see we've got all 4 of the red vortices. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all 4 of the orange ones. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can do like Sesame Street. I can count them all up. But what you get with this piece is a lot of beautiful accuracies. Like here at the upper rim of the vortex that is one of the orange chakras, you can see how perfectly this rounded chakra of the indigo fits inside of there. There's a bubble. It looks like a basketball. That's to this side and to this side. That's emanating from the pineal gland in here, but it kind of rolls in a track that goes right around that orange chakra vortex, right around shoulder level. And shoulder level is also right where you see the bottom of this vortex of the violet chakra. And then you can also see over here, like you've got this edge of the green chakra and how that fits directly on this edge of the yellow chakra. Green is unconditional love, and yellow is the intellect. Your heart and your mind are connected. You're like, well, duh, Aurora. I know my heart and my mind are connected. I know you do. I know you do because you are smart people. You've been in my class for a long time. But for some people, that might be revelatory because for a long time and in Earth's traditional science and psychiatry, they have said, no, like your heart and your mind are totally disconnected. Please cut your brain in half and do not integrate these 2 halves. Like, you guys are doing great. And you're like, yep, my brain and my heart are connected. And there's literally something called brain-heart coherence. So when you look at your body in this way, you look at it not as a piece, not as like puzzle pieces, not like, oh, my knee is hurting, there's something here, or my belly button is hurting, there's something here. You recognize that you're a holistic presence. All of these energies flow through every single layer of your being. And let me draw this for you. This is going to be fun and exciting because I don't think I've drawn this for you yet. So this is a cell of your body. It's terrible. It's supposed to be a circle. Just please bear with me. It's supposed to be a circle. Okay, but so please know that this is not completely accurate, but let's say here's your red chakra over here, and then we're just going to work with dots, but because I want the simplification to confuse you, but I'm just going to make dots for this little quick sketch. And then that's supposed to be orange. This is supposed to be yellow. Like, I'm sure it's really hard to see on your screen, but let's just get across the image that each one of your cells has all 7 chakras. Each one of your cells. So each one of your cells has physical presence, and then all of these other ephemeral layers, just like you do up and down your body. But of course, I just drew it like that, like a little abstraction. But the truth is, this violet area, that's your cell nucleus. So if I were more accurate, well, if I were most accurate, I would draw it like there's the nucleus of your cell. And now let's draw the nuclear membrane around it. And then there's stuff and goo, and then there's the cell membrane around that. That's really, really accurate as to how this goes. But please know this is like a little abstraction over here. So just like you have this energy force field apparatus that goes all up and down your spine, every single one of the cells of your body has this going up and down its presence. So, of course, I could draw, if I stood here all day, all of the other cells of your body. Just know it's all there, it's all there, it's all there. So that means like if we are going to work on your light blue chakra, it's not just in your throat. It's actually in all of your cells because it's in this one and this one and this one and this one. It's not just in the cells of your throat. And same thing, especially with this divine connection over here, the nucleus. That's inside of every single one of your cells. So when I talk about the violet chakra, I often point up to my head. Hold on a second. I don't know to press. When I talk about the violet chakra, I often point up to my head over here. Got a bug inside. And that is accurate, but it's shorthand because really my violet chakra, the pinpoint that connects me to divinity, is at the center of every single one of my cells, and is not just doink like up here on the top of my head. So these are shorthand conveniences to be able to talk about things. All right. Just pulling up my notes. Okay. So each one of those chakras is a conscious being. And you, as your overarching self, combining together both what would be considered your ego self and all of the layers of your more ephemeral aspects of self, layers that are moving at a faster rate through time than your material existence, all of that is who you are. So this is a question of self-identity and goes back to, I railed against imperfect shadow work. But in truthful work of self-archaeological excavation and self-construction, you must consider the true aspects of yourself. Like you're not just a biological form, you are that. And you are that with all of these other time layers and layers of consciousness on top of it. There is something called your exalted viewpoint. So that is first, let me explain what is your earthly viewpoint. Earthly, mundane, often called three-dimensional, but a better expression would be your first person. First person, like when you write a fictional novel in the first person, you're like, I am walking on a treadmill. I went to the store. I'm the person doing this. This is my viewpoint. And that's very, very fair. But you also have the exalted viewpoint. And the exalted viewpoint is also you, but that is how you look at the world when you are not embedded in linear time, when you are moving at a different rate, when you are multidimensional, when you are able to perceive more about the causality structure or the fabric of time and how it's woven together. And your emotions and your perception and contextualization of events changes radically. And it also gives you a lot more unconditional love in your heart. So people look at unconditional love in the world of human ignorance. I'm sorry, I struggled to find a non-condescending and non-insulting word, but I didn't really get it there. When people cannot really know and see why things happen, and they often just have a kind of, they go into a faith. I don't want to poop on anybody's faith. Of course, it's very beautiful that you try to be in that way, but people don't really know what's going on. Like they can't really see the present clearly. They cannot really perceive the past and remember the past accurately. They're not really creating accurate patterns in order to explain the present using the past, and they definitely not can conceive of and anticipate and precog the future effectively. No. So creating very flawed narrative structures about like why things are happening, and then going into a type of faith, like I feel, I hope, I think, I believe it's going to be like this because of this, but none of that is grounded in reality. Like that is all really, really flawed stuff. But your faith in good stuff is kind of nice, but so I don't want to be cruel, but very flawed often, and you can faith yourself in the wrong direction where you're like, I have a faith, I'm going in the right direction. Like you're driving on the road, you're like, am I going in the right direction? And there's like, no, you're not going in the right direction at all. And you were just kind of like trying to glamour yourself, like hypnotize yourself, be like, I feel like I'm going in the right direction, but no, you were not going in the right direction. The presence of consciousness that is known as your chakras are actually supposed to guide you in the right direction. These are time beings that are super evolved. When you access is not the right word, but integrate with their viewpoint, then you are guided in the right direction. And once again, the negative things in our world that have been going on have been designed. Please mute yourself. Allison can't come into the meeting late and without muting yourself. Just mute yourself, girl. Just not even listening. Just thank you.
Sorry, I thought I was.
Thank you. And again, I don't mean to be so harsh on people. Thank you for understanding. It just throws me off my game. Thank you. The things that aren't ideal in our world that are mostly technological interferences, chemical, biological, technological interferences that are blocking out the effect of connections and signals between your true nature as consciousness, your biological body, and this natural, conscious time presence that is actually supposed to be here guiding you through your life. So if you're feeling lost or like your life is inconsequential or meaningless, or like, you know, even whatever, like existentially bankrupt in some way, it's like, no, that's not what is really going on. There's been a concerted effort and a whole agenda perpetrated by a regime to reduce meaning from your life, to take meaning out of the world, to make the world more garbage, and to distance you from your higher self. But again, we're not calling it higher self anymore, but let's call it the exalted viewpoint. When you have the exalted viewpoint, you're massively empowered. And it's not that you would not get angry. You can still feel all of those emotions. I want you to know, because the emotion of anger is an orange emotion. That's down here. And yes, that is a lower frequency than green, which is unconditional love, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't feel those emotions. So that's another thing that, you know, I'm very clear in my work. Like, you are supposed to be a full spectrum human. You're supposed to feel all of the things that are you. You're not supposed to amputate parts of your presence so that you can then be acceptable, quote unquote, and be worthy and fly away and ascend and go to heaven. No, not at all. In fact, the way that you quote unquote go to heaven is by fully inhabiting your body, fully claiming all of your emotional reactions, fully honing your mind so that your intellect is like lean and has no extra spam around the edges, and then super energizing your heart, and then activating all these higher faculties so that you can see and navigate time field very effectively. So the type of relationship you're supposed to have between yourself, that is the ego biological self, and yourself, that is the exalted viewpoint, non-embodied self, that is of pure light, is reciprocal, reciprocity. The feeling state of love here at the green heart is really about reciprocity, where you are giving and receiving equal amount, an equal amount of care, an equal amount of responsibility, an equal amount of effort. Sometimes I have talked about this in my innocence. Like, I'm less innocent now, but I came here very innocent, and I'm like, oh, like being married. But now if I talk about that, like the reciprocity of ideal marriage, most people are like, roar, like, that's not what marriage is like. Like, here's a vast array of cartoons and memes that you may access in order to educate yourself. And I'm like, I have educated myself through your vast encyclopedic library of memes. And I have learned that marriage and partnership is not always reciprocal. And someone is always feeling like they are always the person unloading the dishwasher, right? But so we can make all sorts of jokes. And I'm sure you guys make jokes in your own life. But I used to be very innocent and be like, yeah, everybody shares their tasks equally and, you know, rises to the occasion and does their best in a relationship. And then you're all giving an equal amount and receiving an equal amount. That is very idealistic. But allow me my idealism, all right? Let's move to idealism in your body. In a beautiful, pristine, non-garbage system, what should you be experiencing with your, oh, that's not the thing I wanted to press, sorry. I'm looking at my notes here, with your chakras from the exalted viewpoint. What would your life be like? Because mostly people are not living at that feeling state. First, let's talk about what the approach would be like. Sometimes people do feel a sense of impending terror as they are coming closer and closer to their higher self. You as an organism, ego consciousness have to accelerate in order to meet this level of light presence that is you. And the light presence actually has to decelerate slightly and materialize slightly in order to be able to connect effectively with you. And this is an energetic thing. Like if one car is moving at 10 miles an hour and one's moving at 10,000 miles an hour, like they're moving at very different rates. And how do you find a common ground for them to be sharing and even communicating? But then also in the sense of your personal worldview and your motivations and your ideations. So like humans who are in their biological and ego presence are focused on materiality very necessarily. Like you do need toilet paper because you have a butt and you have to take care of it. I always use that as like the silliest but most valid truth of materialistic life. Like, yeah, you need food and you need other stuff too to take care of your body. And something that doesn't have those motivations or body parts wouldn't comprehend, like, what? You need to buy these things and you need to buy them all the time and you need to do this, you need to do that. So the motivations and the needs. But then also similarly, there are very, very real needs and motivations of the self state that lives in a non-material state that needs to do things in its motivational required timing, for lack of a better word, parameters, prerequisites, it's not the word, prerogatives. I had to go through my brain encyclopedia. It has its own prerogatives. And you as a materialistic being might not comprehend that. And so sometimes that can be a sense of feeling like if you are the ego intellect state, but your intuition is like, you just have to stop what you're doing right now and, to put on some music and dance. And your rational mind is like, that is irrational. I am doing something important right now. Like whatever, I'm doing my taxes or I'm doing something responsible. I can't just stop and dance, but it might be very important in some sense for these larger aspects of your divine presence, your connection to higher intelligence, the exalted viewpoint. And I use dance as, one example, but it could be other things too. It could be like, you must play, get to that piano right now, drop everything, play a song. Or you must call this person and talk to this person and do this, directives. And some of them are irrational, but they are very valid from the exalted viewpoint. And then there can also be larger things where it's about like how you structure your life. Maybe you're like your higher exalted viewpoint is telling you like maybe you need to leave a job position. And maybe your rational mind is like, it's not that bad. And I get paid every Friday. Like, why do I want to leave this job? But your exalted viewpoint might be integrating you in the time field, and it might need to have its prerogative respected, that it's like, oh, something there is not that much more energy on this timeline, and you will have to switch timelines now. And so what is the ideal reciprocity in relationship is when everybody has more longevity and coherence because everybody works together, because everybody is communicating respectfully and then following respectful directives. And this is what it was like in ancient or concurrent Atlantis. And this is what it's like in a pristine system. So it's the ultimate also in not like trusting in your ego self only, but trusting in what is internal, not having an external directive. So you do not look at these chakras or consciousness beings in your chakras as if they are someone else or something else. So that's another thing we got to talk about, spirit guides. Because as people are in their ego state, they experience their chakras as if it is like some kind of a council, a wise council, or whatever, some kind of like committee in a boardroom somewhere deciding your fate. And that's not really a healthy dynamic, and also not really a healthy lens of interpretation through which to perceive these aspects of self. So if you're the company, yeah, that is your board, and you are the CEO of the company. But the CEO is the viewpoint that happens when you put all of these layers of being together. And that viewpoint also includes the necessities of your cells. Like just as you need your things for your materialistic presence, your cells also need things for their materialistic presence and for their personal fulfillment and for their spiritual growth. And they need to be recognized too. Sometimes it might be water. Like think about that. Like when you are like, oh, something, like I'm so thirsty, what's actually happening is your cells are exerting their prerogative. They're like, you really need some water for this to keep going. So you have to think about that, cravings. You're like, oh, I'm craving salt. It's like, yes, like your cells are actually saying what they need. Or allergies can be another one. That's basically your body's cells saying, whatever you do, just don't expose me to the substance. I cannot deal with it. And all of that is very fair. That's the body's cellular prerogative. And if you, as your ego self and the larger time presence that's orchestrating events for you, the exalted self, work together, then you can avoid allergens, right? Like you can have a long, coherent life. Just don't walk on that road where there is that plant that you are wildly allergic to, and then you won't die of whatever, I'm joking about dying, but, have a huge allergic reaction. If anybody has ever had like poison ivy or poison oak, you know what I'm talking about. Like just take the hint from your intuition. Don't walk on that road because you're going to get exposed to poison ivy and poison oak, and your body cannot take that stuff. And that could, some things can be deadly or wildly life diminishing in some ways. So you try to listen to your intuition because it keeps you alive. But none of this is meant to be a master and slave dynamic. And that's the key point in reciprocity and mutual respect. So I think that in the world of spiritual seekers, there is this negative tendency to disassociate from those feeling states and say it's a group or a council or got 12 guide of 12 spiritual wisdom, whatever blobs, wisdom polygons that are in my life. I mean, people name them all sorts of different things. But it's just not necessarily healthy if you're taking your life directives and feeling like it is something other that is talking to you. What really happens in a positive journey of self-development is you as the ego intellectual state accelerate. And then you feel as if you're moving towards your own image in the mirror. And what happens is you're moving towards your heart. As you are moving up the chakras through your ego presence to your heart, your higher self is moving through all of these chakras in what you would say is a downward direction towards your heart. And both of you are coming into the mirror and you're like super intimidated, white knuckle, feeling like you're meeting something that might be supernatural, alien, otherworldly, or extraterrestrial. And then by the time you actually reach the mirror, it turns out you're kissing yourself in the mirror. That all of that fear and all of those things is not actually anything to be afraid of. It actually was you. But that's in a pristine system. Because I don't want you to think like, oh, Aurora just gave me a directive to go out and kiss aliens. I'm like, no, not kissing aliens. No, but kiss your higher self, which as you're approaching it through the distortion lens of time dynamics might appear as if it is some supernatural, otherworldly presence, but it is actually you. So no, do not go off looking for your spiritual twin flame soul that you think is an alien and go kiss aliens. No, no. All right. But yes to accelerating your ego presence, self-archaeological exploration, and self-construction through genuine connection to aspects of yourself that are moving at a faster rate through time and that can perceive more of what is going on in time. When you can perceive more, it really does change and redefine your personality. Like the truth is, each one of you is God. And the people that are in this class, like you're all the good people. That's why I can say that. Like, now I want to say that to everyone. People here are good. All right. So just know that you are, spoiler alert, God. But you don't know what that viewpoint is like yet because God is the viewpoint of the person who has read every single book or watched the entire TV series and gotten to the end. So just think about anything, any TV series that you really enjoy, and think about the person that you were the first time that you saw it, and as you started to watch it, and how you changed and grew as you watched the narrative and the character development. And then there's a reason why it's your favorite show. By the end of the show or the end of the first season or whatever, you've changed and grown, and you're like, wow, I look at the world differently now that I know all of that stuff. Okay. And then you might also go right back to the very first episode and reread or watch it again because you're like, I'm so different now. Now I have to watch that whole entire thing because it blew my mind. I have to watch that whole entire thing and now reassess everything that I thought about all those characters and all that viewpoint. All right. Please know that that is exactly what you are experiencing in your own life. Like as you learn more about your journey, you will see everything totally differently. Like I've talked to you about my virtual, mythological red clipboard of red X's. Clipboard of red X's. When you do something that is incorrect, how it shows up on the clipboard of red X's, like this sense of after you die, getting the exalted perspective, way too late, because then you can only try it again from the beginning. But ideally, you connect with all of these viewpoints of your chakras so that you don't have to die in order to get a life assessment. You're having a constant reciprocity feedback state from your chakras about what your life choices are like and how it is constructing you. Are you going in a positive direction as your life? Are you not going in a positive direction? Are you going where your intentions are? Like, you can make an intention. I want to do this. Is this actually going to bring you towards your goal? Or is it, a wild, negative, side quest or, dead end for you? And what you're trying to do is have a viewpoint above being like a little ant crawling on the surface of time. If you can see all of these roads stretched in front of you, then you don't just have to make your choices by kind of like randomness, wishing and hoping, or making tons of mistakes. You can make your choices as a much more informed citizen. And that's the idea. So I think that many people who are in this class, because I, have kind of focused my audience here to innately good people, but many of you could probably identify like you have made mistakes in your life. Like, I'm going to do this, but you make choices that didn't lead to that goal because you didn't know. And so if you could know or rectify those mistakes by going back, you'd be like, oh, I would change this choice because that did not bring me my direction at all. And because you are good people. So you can understand, like some people would be like, I make choices wrong on purpose. And I would make bad choices again and again and again. And that's like not a good face. But none of those people are in my class. But those are bad people in the world. And we have to sometimes recognize the, I want to call people garbage, but there's sometimes some very, very bad students that are here that are intentionally not learning, and they destroy the educational environment for everyone. And so you're not any of those people. But the idea is the exalted viewpoint helps to guide you through your life so that you're not flying blind and you're being given accurate assessments along the way. And then, just as in ancient concurrent Atlantis, when you're truly in alignment with these chakras, you do not die. The reason why people really die is because they don't have their SHIT together. They're making bad choices, they're doing bad math, and they can't get the information until they get to the final red clipboard. But if you can get the information before the final red clipboard, I think I've shown you in my illustrations, like, you can come out of a nosedive, like you're heading towards death, but get some information, then you're like, oh, we'll go away from death, and I will now go back over here towards life. So that is very big. Your chakras want you to be alive. Your chakras do not want you to hit the membrane of death. This is the common goal. If you're really working together in partnership, you both have a common goal to steer the ship that is you away from the membrane of death. And that is what your chakras should be doing with you. So instead of like careening wildly out of control, like this way, this way, this way, that is careening towards the membrane of death. Your chakras have a vested interest in remaining nice and straight like this. can imagine these guys are spinning like these nice little bicycle wheels, and they just go like those guys from Tour de France. Fast bicycles, let's just go like zoom, 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 and they're going along like do, 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 do. And they don't wibble wobble at all. Like they are nice and super straight. Laser focused, coherent, moving through time in a very, very coherent, stately, focused way. And what is that like? Well, for the experience of what it can be very different from different people, because I feel like I move through time in a very stately, focused way. But also, if you watched me, I am like really all over the place doing a lot of things, because like I'm like, well, like first I'm gonna, wake up in the morning, we're like, I'm gonna write a song. Then I'm done. Now, like, now I'm gonna paint a painting. Now I'm done. Like, now I'm gonna make a comic. Like, now I'm done. Now I'm gonna call this person. I'm gonna do this. Like I'm all over the place. But for me, that is very focused, because like I know exactly like I need to do this. Now I impulse to do this. Now I impulse to do this. Now I impulse to do this. I'm very comfortable with all of that, and it's all key point non-random. So when you're in conjunction with your chakras, you are doing non-random stuff in organizing your time in a way that is comfortable to you. This goes down to basic levels of your personal consciousness freedom, because most people have been domesticated to live by the clock and an external schedule, even little kids, because you teach little kids like this is the time when you wake up, and then this is the time when you watch Sesame Street, and now you go to kindergarten, and this is the time when you're allowed to have your nap time, and then this is when you wake up and you have your cookies. Like you teach them to do things at certain times, time, as an emphasis here, and not to simply flow from event to event. And the focus in schooling on instilling a scheduled mind is to make people good domesticated workers, because people in the past went to an office, and you go to your office job and you begin at 9 a.m. ding, and then you will work until 10:30 ding, then you will work again till you're from 11 to 12:30 ding, then you will have your break in the park ding, and feed pigeons ding, 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 and then you will do all these things. Like you are trained, you are domesticated. And then when you drive home at night, after you arrive home, that is when you have your free time. There is no ding, and you can simply do what you want to do. But because you're used to ding, you're like, all right, home at 6:30, dinner time, ding, 7:30, watch Jeopardy, ding, 8 o'clock, watch your favorite show, ding, go to bed at 10, ding. And then wake up with your alarm clock, ding, and do the whole thing again. And that this is like how most people are propelled through time, by these external prompts and external schedules. But when you are a truly like alive and free and feral being, you are 100% connecting with your chakras. And these are wheels of time, and they guide you through your day. And each day is, new and fresh. So of course, there have been times in my life when I was scheduled and I was not in charge of my life. Very, very difficult times. I felt very straitjacketed, and it was hard for me. And I would try to find ways to be free within, like to struggle within the straitjacket, and really couldn't wait to get out of it. So yeah, I consider myself like very happy that right now what I do is I schedule my own time. It doesn't mean that I'm totally unscheduled, because clearly I come here at a particular time each week in order to be able to, give this class information. But I also have a lot of other time when I achieve my tasks in a way that is unscheduled and self-directed, because the self-direction doesn't just come from my ego state, it comes from my entirety presence that is helping to impulse me in positive, life-affirming directions. So the directives that are given to me are positive, life-affirming activities, like all the things that I mentioned, like writing a song, that impulses my life in a positive direction. That's in alignment with my soul and my mission and my purpose for being here. Painting a painting, same thing. Working on some kind of a, communication project and putting it on my Patreon, same thing. These are all positive, relevant tasks to who I am and what I need to do in my life. So that's what each one of us should be doing, is working together, or I would encourage each of you, is a better way of saying it. I need to definitely, the cells of my body are like, send in water. Our prerogative is we want water. I'm like, on it, guys. They're like, if you want to keep moving through time, you better give us some water soon. Each one of us should aspire to levels of reclamation of sovereignty of our time in our life so that we may be directed by these chakras as opposed to an external scheduling imposition. And none of this equates to inactivity or laziness or sedentary behavior. It equates to self-direction and self-scheduling. And why is this important? Because when I self-schedule and listen to my chakras, it gives me the flexibility to be correctly embedded in time. Because sometimes I need to do something from 2 to whatever, 2:35. And if I already have a meeting scheduled, like, oh, I will not be doing that thing from 2 to 2:35. I have a meeting scheduled there. So it's important to honor the irrational directives that come from inside of yourself, that sometimes you might need to have flexibility. Like, oh, I was supposed to talk to that person at that time, but I need to do this instead. I will do this thing instead and then talk to them later. But of course, we would mostly consider that in the mundane world to be like disruptive and disrespectful of other people's times. Like you have to make appointments, and that's domesticated self. And so I'm very at odds with that. And I'm in both worlds of both being super free as I experience time, but then also connecting with people at scheduled moments. And I can tell you, I struggle with it. So that's why I have like some days of my week, I'm totally scheduled. And I know exactly what I'm doing at every time of the day on those days of the week. And it changed, and it changes depending upon who I'm meeting with. But I know there will be meetings. But then there are some days where it's like, I don't have anything scheduled on this day, only myself scheduling. And that's how I've figured out to kind of ways to be kind of fit with the world, because it's very challenging. And I will admit, like, in order to practice commerce and be respectful of other times, I have to integrate with the domesticated mind state. And also there are times when I have to be completely free and honor the inner directives of things that are sometimes irrational and when I need to do things. So I would encourage each one of you to, do a sensible thing, because you can tell I'm a sensible person. Like, I don't want anybody to be living out of a cardboard box because you're so busy following your own inner directives that you're not able to connect with people, do commerce, be what is considered responsible. Like, no, we have to be responsible to the world. But also, I plant these seeds here because my real intention is for us to change the social dynamic. Like, if I talk about and recognize most people here went to public school, even though I know there's much more, I tried to say, even though I now know there is much more of a movement towards homeschooling. And so many of you might have experienced either unschooling or homeschooling, or some of you might be parents and that's what you're doing for your kids. But a lot of people went through the traditional public school system and you got indoctrinated, you got domesticated, you learned all of those things. And then now we're really trying to construct a whole new way of being, and maybe to excavate the person who you were before they taught you, like, you gotta wait for this moment, and that's when Sesame Street is going to be on, or you have to wait until this moment, and that's when you will go to your art class, like whatever, if you go to a little kid's art class, like, you can't paint now. You have to wait. No, we paint when we go to art class, and that happens on this day at this time. Like, you might have to excavate and find your true self and remember what it feels like to be self-directed when the impulse arises internally. So thoughts are living creatures. This is also a big thing to talk about. That cognition and consciousness, you have to define all of these terms. But so consciousness is an innate, like a ball of consciousness, an innate thing, stuff that is, invented miraculously, not invented by people. And it is what you are, and you inhabit it. And there's also, similar to light, the photon is part of the larger light field of, waveform presences of light everywhere. Your consciousness is individuated because you're you. Like, just to make a test, like, you're you. And you move your body parts, right? But like, my dog is my dog and she moves her body parts. So like, if you guys want to do a little consciousness experiment, like, can I make my dog's tail wag? I'm like, no, of course not. She wags her own tail. It's part of her consciousness. That's the photon consciousness packet known as Cheeky, right? And I don't wag her tail. I'm in charge of my own volition, and I'm in charge of like getting the dog food off of the shelf and like putting it in her dish. And she's not in charge of those muscles in me, because if she would be like giant and feed herself a lot. So I'm trying to use comedy in order to be able to talk about consciousness. Consciousness is individuated. Your willpower is an expression of your consciousness individuation. We are respectful of the free will of other individuated packets of consciousness. When you achieve the exalted viewpoint, you start to comprehend, oh, all this stuff is me. All of this stuff is you. But when you achieve the exalted viewpoint, you have hopefully cleared out your chakras of all of the pooty garbage that is not actually supposed to be there. And when you do self-identification exercises in the world, you hopefully are swimming in a pristine environment, not a garbage environment. So in ancient concurrent Atlantis, if we swam around, quote unquote, or we're in other people's energy fields, like, wow, I'm you and you're me. And we are expressions of the same pristine primal field of pure consciousness. Hey, cool, high five, like, nice to meet you. Like, that's what it would be like there, because we lived in a world where there was no garbage. That means every person who was there was someone who was supposed to be there. And there were no psychopaths, no psychopathic characteristics, no, I want to say rapist, murderer, serial killers, right? That's not innate to our genetics. Something happened. And we always talk about that and allude to that in this class. We always say, we'll talk about that in lesson 18, putting it off. But, we talk about it quite openly now. But yeah, the events around galactic invasion, solar system destabilization, and invasion of this actual planet, which is really invasion of and destabilization of the genome, which was really invasion of and destabilization of the chakras. So chakras are living creatures, living consciousnesses, and they don't like being invaded. Really want to go into levels of reciprocity. You have an alliance with your chakras. It's you, ego presence, you, biological body form, cellular structure, and your consciousness with your chakras against the pooties. They are the invaders. And to reiterate and re-emphasize, your ego presence doesn't want them in you, and your chakra presences don't want them in you. They are invaders. Pooties are invaders. They are not supposed to be a part of you. So this is really important, because when people are not experts and they're either receiving information erroneously or going to some kind of therapy or whatever, like sometimes inexpertly, people are taught or required or coerced into identifying with those residual aspects of things that are inside of them instead of getting rid of them. Like, it's the total opposite. Like, no, you should not identify with your alcoholism as an innate part of you. It's not you. That's actually pooty crapola. It's not you, and you don't have to claim it as your own. Got to clean it up. So it's like if you look where your job was to clean up the house. Sorry, I know my words are not connected to my brain today. My brain is going so fast today. I did not drink like caffeinated coffee, but I feel like the coffee really like super sped up my brain today. If you are and then I'm like, I need to collect myself here. Hold on, I need to collect myself of exactly what I want to say. You are most certainly not your addictions, alcoholisms, or eating disorders, or anything like that. Those are things that you would not want to identify with. If your job were to clean your house and you're like, yeah, these windows have fingerprints all over them. And instead of taking the Windex and like, swiping them away or whatever, like, these are family fingerprints. They're ancestral fingerprints. They're supposed to be their fingerprints. And like, don't claim those fingerprints. Don't claim these greasy smudges. That is not supposed to be there. You clean the house. You clean the house and do your job. Wipe away the smudges and the fingerprints that's not supposed to be there. So like, the alcoholism that's coming from your great-great-grandfather, or the eating disorder that's coming from your great-great-grandmother, like, none of those fingerprint smudges belong on your genetic imprint here. They don't really belong on anybody's genetic imprint. They are not life affirming. They don't bring you towards longevity and coherence. That's how you can really tell as you're looking around your house. Like, you guys know what's dirty versus clean. I don't have to tell you, but if you were like a total otherworldly visitor and you had never cleaned a house before, Be like, okay, like, look, surfaces are not supposed to have greasy smudges on them, like food residues or anything else. Like surfaces are just supposed to be surfaces. And then you have to find the appropriate solvent to clean each surface. In your DNA, you have to learn how to do something similar where you're looking at different personality characteristics or bodily tendencies. And you have to say, this stuff over here is who I'm supposed to be. And this stuff over here is extra stuff on the surface. Like if it's a greasy spill, you have to clean it with Windex. If it's a bunch of dust, you wipe it off with a little brush, like dust it off with a brush, like figure out techniques to get rid of that stuff. And you want to be doing that as your holistic self. This is part of creating your boundaries, and this is part of living in a healthful way, moving through the time field. So almost pretty much all of recorded human history and everything that you know about humans as domesticated or quote unquote civilized creatures has been not having a clean house, has been not having a pristine genetic system. So this is going to be very, very new from the viewpoint of the limited ego intellect that only knows about the past whatever 5 or 10,000 years of human history, and that doesn't really know about or has self-amnesia for ancient concurrent Atlantis. This would be very mind-blowing to be like, oh, that is what your quality of life is supposed to be. So yeah, you are supposed to be in partnership with your chakras. And I think we have to talk a little bit about true light and false light, because your chakras are made out of true light. So these are also phenomena that happen independent of your willpower. So as you come here like a little tiny baby, you don't have to be like, okay, chakras, like get spinning, get spinning. Like you come here as a baby and your chakras are already spinning. And then you're like playing through your life and, whatever, learning how to do things. And you don't have to be like, okay, like learn how to spin your chakras. Like you learn how to tie your shoes, right? You learn the coordination of your hands to be able to tie your shoes. But you don't have to learn like, okay, like keep my chakra spinning, keep my chakra spinning. Don't have to take lessons on how to keep your chakra spinning. It is innate and it's a part of you. In ancient concurrent Atlantis, it was again an innate natural part of us in pristine system where it's like you didn't have to do anything with effort, and your relationship with your or partnership with your chakras pretty much sustained and guided you. So education was also very different then, because you learned everything that you needed to from your own energy field, and everyone else like facilitated, like, you need a resource or if you need something from me, but mostly you were self-guided and self-protected from the higher aspects of self, your own exalted viewpoint. So now you can comprehend how in this time and place where people are very cut off from the exalted viewpoint and disassociated from it, and they've been told that they're sinners and that they're low and they're gross and they're greasy and they're stupid and they're just, stick them on down, like smush them on down into the carpet. That's how low they make people feel. And the higher self is, in the exalted viewpoint, is looked up to as if it's so perfect. You would see it as guardian angel or the council of 12 guardians or something like that. Something big, maybe imposing and very perfect and very divine. And that is an out of balance dynamic. And it's beautiful to look up to, like your own self or to see yourself in that light, but it's the disassociation to see it as something other than self and better than you. That is unhealthy. So when you get into the sense of recognizing and identifying with like, you are the divine presence, and the divine presence has all these different layers running at different levels, and including the level of your physical body. So you even claim and redefine your physical body as a part of the divine presence. Again, I'm always harping on Gnosticism, as the ancient Gnostics were like, oh, materiality. Oh, I have a body. Oh no, this body is just an inherent prison. Can't wait to get out of it and be free. And I'm like, no, your body is an opportunity. You're a miracle within a miracle. But a better way of framing all of that is that in diseased or out of connection body, can feel like an imprisonment and can be a diminishment of soul connection and consciousness and perception. But when your body is divinely connected, when every single one of your little cells of your body has its own little chakra system in perfect alignment and is spinning around and dancing and transmitting energy through all of your other cellular bodies, then your body is awesome. And it is not an imprisonment at all. And it feels fantastic, and it can literally run forever. Have a perpetual motion machine that you can use in order to be keeping on propelling your consciousness through time. That is awesome. That's when you claim the amazing, miraculous nature and sacredness of your physical cellular body. I will also just briefly say, if people really claimed that at the ego level, people would not look at their bodies as disposable, and they would not do a lot of things that endanger or break the body, like going onto roller coasters or whatever. Like I'm sorry, I don't want to make people feel bad if they have tattoos, but like that is a kind of destruction of the body. Like some of these are what do I want to call it? Like sometimes people think about their body as if it is disposable, like you're going to use it up and then get rid of it. But when you recognize how much the body can go far with longevity and coherence, if you treat it well, then you would not want to make like thousands of tiny pinpricks in your skin. You would not want to create that level of scar tissue. You would not want to do a lot of things that people do, because tattoos are like recreational and decorational. So, but also, I don't want to make people feel bad if they've had their organs removed or amputations, or if they've had to have a tooth pulled or something like that. Like, I don't want to diminish you, because I really do believe that you will be able to go into your how-to manuals of your body, learn about restoration and regeneration, be able to be restored. But in order to do that, we do have to get rid of a lot of these disruptive signals that are in the world right now that have been distancing people from the empowerment that happens when you are fully in partnership with your own chakras. So if you're kind of like, well, Aurora, like, why do dentists exist? Like, how come everyone's not just growing an extra set of teeth? The real answer is because right now you're on a world where it's very imprisoned with the first electrical system that is anti-life, those freaks. So it's, I have to talk about stuff that harms your chakras now. And I want to look at the chat to make sure that I'm not yet. Okay, I got to talk to people that are in the chat. And also, I was turning my dogs here. Okay, so first let's talk about all the things that harm the chakras and destabilize your chakras. So your chakras are an energy field around you. And there are a lot of things that can disrupt this energy field. It's not fair to say, like, just be strong. Like, because I'm going to kind of like impersonate the mind state of evil right now. That's kind of like, okay, pretend like I'm evil, and I'm evil and I want to hurt your chakras, and I'm going to like hose you down with all these negative frequencies. And I'm like, la, 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 I'm corroding away your chakras. Just be stronger. Just make your energy field stronger. Like, put up some shielding or find a way to stay coherent, even though I'm like hosing you down with corrosive stuff that's not very good at all. It's not fair is what I'm trying to say. The mind state of evil. The mind state of evil says like, well, we live in a free world and I'm a free will being and I'm allowed to hose down with corrosive frequencies, and you're just going to have to shield yourself or get stronger in some way. And being kind of like a little bit like sarcastic and, snooty in how I say that, because none of that is truthful. That is not truthful. It's not fair. So anything can be corroded if you find the solvent for it. It's not fair to be able to say to you, like, just be indestructible. This is deep cosmic stuff. This goes down to deep levels of cosmic wisdom, because we talk about the diamond body. This is known in the area of Asia as the Vajrayana body. And it's very similar to the idea of what are your chakras and what are you when you are a descendant master. The Vajrayana body is known as the diamond body, and it is meant to be indestructible. And you can sense that this is like a desire of spiritual attainment coming out of a world where people are destroyed or have been destroyed, where it's a problem. Like you only buy an indestructible thing in a world where like my thing keeps on being destroyed. And it's not supposed to be like this. You're not supposed to be trying to grow and accrete light and evolve in such a hostile environment. We're supposed to be in a place like ancient current Atlantis, where like imagine like as energy comes into your energy field, as you get money in your bank account, it's not immediately siphoned away or changed, distorted, or weaponized against you in some way. And you can actually save for the future, have consciousness stability, and move forward in levels of like joy and celebration. And here in this world, things are very different, where like you are trying to accrete light, to move faster, to accelerate your consciousness. And there are many things that are very intentional in the world, not accidental, that are placed in your path as obstacles. Some of them might be physical, material obstacles. Some of them might be intentional frequencies that are emitted in the world, that are intended to slow down or destabilize your chakras. So frequencies such as the carrier waves, so the electricity itself of AC, as opposed to direct current, there's the DC and the AC. The AC current pulses in certain ways, and this is now like pulsing around your planet, and those pulses are very anti-chakra health. All right. They're not in these nice, cool musical waves that your chakras are moving in. So if you had really elevated engineers who engineered your electrical grid differently, you could have a type of electricity and a type of electrical pulsing that would be complementary to and harmonious to the movement of your chakras through time. And you would not have it be inherently consciousness reducing and longevity reducing. But you have not had that in this world. In this world, you have had a series of dark magicians who are intentionally choosing pulsing of the AC current to be consciousness diminishing and corrosive of your chakras. It's a cage intentionally. And I felt it very, very strongly when they were putting up some new infrastructure in my neighborhood in 2018. They did a lot of climbing on the poles. Every week they were climbing on the poles around the neighborhood and putting up the new transformers, the white buckets that are up there. And as they started to do that, I really sensed a change in my own consciousness freedom. And I was like, whatever they're doing with these new buckets, like this is making it harder for me to lasagna. And then at a certain point, they flipped the switch and they energized all the buckets. And it was like a cage. They had built a consciousness reduction cage around certain areas of my neighborhood. And then I remember that was still like, there were still places where you could go where it wasn't like satellite based stuff. And I would go to like these little places that are these nature preserves and kind of get open space where my brain and my head can kind of go like up and out where it wasn't in the cage. But then at a certain point, they blanketed the whole place and the whole place became a cage. And one of the truth, a lot of the work that I do in the retreats that I have organized with my wonderful Flying Rainbow Lasagna dancers in person, a lot of what we've done has been to raise the ceiling or create openings in that artificial encagement so that we can reach out more easily, but also so that more light can flow in. Pardon me. So, of course, electricity goes back to the late 1800s. It was consciousness reducing then, but it wasn't everywhere. And so at a certain point, electricity became ubiquitous and was all over our whole entire world. And so there was a slow encroachment of consciousness reduction. When we talk about these almost mythological stories, but recorded in human history, of people, mostly in the Far East, who attained levels of supreme longevity and enlightenment and even seemingly supernatural or magical powers. Most of it was done before the time of electricity. And you really have to comprehend that. So these are people who sustain themselves on nothing but sunlight or prana, people who are able to do profound healings, people who appeared to levitate, people who appeared to materialize objects either out of their hand, out of their mouth, out of the middle of their forehead. And these were usually small objects, often ceremonial or symbolic, such as like small gems or holy ashes. And then also other levels of supernatural attainment, like literally achieving what is known as the rainbow body, or the transformation from materialistic existence into pure ephemeral existence. That transformation is a delicate operation. It's like giving birth. Like, I've never given birth, in a physical body as a woman, but I have female friends that have done so. It's a very vulnerable time. That's when you need to have, like, like one of these jacuzzi tubs, and need to be all like to get quiet, and not super bright lights, have on nice music, and have other people, like, bring you refreshments and help you in different ways. And everyone is supposed to be there to kind of like help you through it. So the rainbow body process, like in the ancient world before electricity was invented, like mostly people would sequester themselves and do it, in a quiet place in nature. Like, you don't really have a place to be able to do that type of transformation now. There's not really a place now where you can go and be without electricity and without 5G. It's in these satellite grids all around the whole planet. All of these pulsings are all around the planet. And it also is, I want to say the word telluric, but I don't know if that's the right word, but things that go through Earth's crust. So it's also like deep, extremely low frequencies. It's the ELF waves that they send through, evil ones, evil ELF waves. I'm now talking about evil elves in our class. I'm aware of that. Okay, good, guys. Have humor. But the ELF waves, it means extremely low frequency. They're going under the ground. And technically, elves do not live underground. We know that dwarves live underground. So let's be accurate here. Now I'm really getting silly. Now, everyone knows elves live in trees and sometimes floating cities, and dwarves live underground. Okay. But there are these frequencies that are sent through Earth's crust that are similarly disruptive to the chakras. And it has made it pretty much since the late 1800s very, very difficult for people to reach these levels of spiritual attainment and to perform these things that are considered miraculous. So now, right now in our world, if we could just flip the master switch, just turn it off, and that means turn off all of the AC current, all of the energy generation, all of the satellites, all of the electrical current, all of the Bluetooth expressions, and all of this type of telecommunication expression. You could turn off all of those frequencies around you. You would instantaneously be a super being. I mean this for real. You would instantaneously be flooded with light. You would be at the genius level. You would see and know everything. You'd be like, oh my God, I understand everything. I know everything. I'm going to write a book. You would be like ready to write a book with all of the information that is flooding through you. You would also feel so immediately physically energized to be like, before I write that book, I'm going to like run a marathon. And then also you would perform several miracles. You'd be like, well, I see that these things are out of order over here. Let me just, while I'm running my marathon, wave my hand, use my psychic powers, perform these miracles, like this, and this all needs to be fixed. Fix things up with some miracles. And then you could run the entire marathon on nothing but connecting to the sun and prana. Like, you wouldn't have to stop and eat whatever, a bunch of pizzas or something like that, or whatever, jars of peanut butter, whatever people eat when they're on a marathon. And what else would happen? Oh, and you'd be telepathic. So as you're going through this amazing experience of transformation, you wouldn't need your stupid phone. You would be telepathic, talking to all of your friends. You'd be like, this is the coolest thing ever. You'd be like, yeah, I'm levitating over here. You'd be like, yeah, like I'm healing my cat. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. You would be connecting with all of your friends. And of course, that would be in a pristine environment without psychopaths. They wouldn't be on the time phone talking to you through your natural telepathy, because the psychopaths use synthetic telepathy. And that's why they created it, because they are literally antichrist against natural telepathy. And that's why they created all of these antichrist frequencies. So even more, I have to emphasize even more, if they turned off the big switch and you finally had access to all of your chakras, you would remember your multidimensional presence. You would remember who you are across all parallel lives and definitions of self. You would remember everything that I'm talking to you about ancient concurrent Atlantis. You are on a galactic level. You would absolutely claim your mission and your purpose for being here. You wouldn't be like, oh, like I'm the person that drives around looking for toilet paper, or, trying to get my dog's flea medicine. You would be like, I am here on an important galactic mission, and I need to do this, and this. And probably you would be ready to clean house, you know what I mean? Like to spank a lot of evil ones and clean house. because that's what happens when you have that influx of pure information. And you also would be able to connect effectively to your chakras to the point that you would be able to claim that exalted viewpoint. So I didn't say that enough. Each conscious being that is a chakra on your body has its own valid individual viewpoint, and then you are the recipe that is comprised of all of these viewpoints acting together. My cells of my body need more water. So even though this is color red, imagine that it's blue and that it's slightly smaller, and I'm holding it up over here because you have this chakra on your body, and that's the Christ chakra on your body. And that is a particular level of consciousness. That is Christ consciousness. When I talk about Christ consciousness, some people are like, is this psyop? I'm skeptical. It's like, drink some tea. I'm skeptical. Skeptical face, side-eye face. It's not a fake thing. It's a real thing. You have consciousness, and you have these different layers of your being. And one of the layers of your being is literally connected to Christ. And that is who you are when you have read the book series or watched the TV series up until that point in the seasons. Like, you've been through all the different seasons. You've been through like season 1, that's like red. Season 2 is orange. Season 3 is yellow. Season 4 is green. Season 5 is authenticity and light blue. And then you finally got to season 6, which is all this stuff about here. It's like you are transformed when you receive certain amounts of information. You're not the same person that you were beforehand. When you start to activate this level of your consciousness and claim that level of your being, you start to see time in a multidimensional sense, and it really expands you. It really redefines you. You really go beyond being a linear person with a linear viewpoint and really starting to comprehend the mechanics of how time events happen, why they happen, that's causality, how you can add to or transform time events, and how you can greater comprehend like who you are in the world based upon which directions you're impulsing, how you're affecting time, the ripples of your mind, and how that reaches out and affects time. You're not the same person that you were before you see all of this stuff. After you see all this stuff, you see this stuff with your mind's eye. After it is activated, it become transformed. Like, think about any major discovery that has happened, like since the 1900s or something like that. Humanity was different after that discovery. Like the discovery of DNA. There's before humans knew about DNA, and then there is after humans knew about DNA, and it was transformative to gain that piece of information. Or, you can think about another time, like when humans first invented the microscope and were able to have lenses that could help magnify little tiny bacteria so that way you could see them. Oh, here comes Cheeky. But it transformed people's viewpoints to be able to know that bacteria exist and that you don't just get sick because a witch looked at you wrong. Hi, Cheeky, come over here. Okay, so we need some just a brief Cheeky hug. Hi, Cheeky's doing great, everyone. Thank you as always for the positive, good wishes and love that you send her. I always tell her, everybody on the internet loves you. That's what I tell her every time. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to check in with Cheeky for a moment. I think we might have a 5-minute bio body break. Food goes in here, and then other things might need to happen too. Let's do it. Let's do it. I think this should probably just need that because we didn't really do that much. We went over to my friend's garden. We didn't really have that much time outside. Okay, so everyone, let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you so much for this. Just pause. Resuming after our nice little snack break there. Thank you very much, everyone. First, I'll go through some of these comments. Kay says, yes, reciprocity is the word. Creating with this word today. Heal, and center yourself. Very good. Well said. When we talk about centering yourself, I think that there's even a polygonal crossover confluence with what we're doing with our chakras. Like when you say center, there's the anthropomorphic experience of feeling a certain feeling state. What does it feel like to be centered as opposed to fragmented and all over the place? But what it also means is not having chakras that wibble wobble like this, having chakras that are very, very straight, calm, and steady. So as you get more of the exalted viewpoint and you can see and sense directly more of what your chakras are and what they're doing, then you will also understand some of the relevance of the word choices and vocabulary choices that people use when you're experiencing or describing your experience on an anthropomorphic level. You're like, that's interesting that people say that in that way with words, because that's literally what I am doing with my presence, with my energy, with the vector of my consciousness in the direction that I'm moving. So Michael says, and thank you for being here, Michelangelo says, chakra alignment, narrow is the way. Yeshua, aka Jesus, the middle path Buddha. I think that there is something there. Again, those teachers, and they're beautiful teachers that I try to speak respectfully about, they brought a concept of following the middle path, which I think was about moving away from extreme. Well, first, let's talk about the Buddha. I think that he was talking about moving away from extremism in behavior, but also it is a direct allegory for moving away from the peripheral timelines to the edges and aligning with the central core timelines, which is who you truly are. So actually, I have a whole teaching about this. She's coughing in the background. And sometimes she gets overexcited. Instead of making you wait for the whole teaching about ascended master, let's just talk about it right now. There are certain characteristics that are on this central core timeline. That's who you are as an ascended master, and they're non-arbitrary. It's not like, God favors people who drink tea instead of coffee. So if you want to be on the ascended master timeline, you better drink tea in the morning and not drink coffee. If you're drinking coffee, then you're moving towards the edges of reality. No, but you as an ascended master will have your own particular flavor that is made out of who you are in the recipe when you add together the flavors of all the different chakras. And you will have your own particular set of characteristics. That's who you are as an ascended master. So you cannot model yourself upon others. Other ascended masters did things that were correct for their times and places. Maybe they drank tea, maybe they drank coffee. That was their gig. You do you, I do me. You got to be like that. So you have to be like the ultimate self-expression, unique musician that you are. Like I know Mozart played like this, and Jimi Hendrix played like this. They were both genius musicians, but you have to be the genius who you are. So you have to be like, do I want to drink tea? Do I want to drink coffee? Or do I want to have a completely different morning routine, lemon water, or whatever it is? Like I'm the ascended version of me always drinks lemon water or apple cider vinegar, whatever it is. I know I get very silly sometimes, but you cannot follow external prescriptions of behavior. That's the opposite. I hope everything that I'm telling you about having a rapport with your chakras brings you to the understanding that it is never externally directed. It is always internally directed. And that even though we love and admire people, we cannot impersonate them. So now when we talk about someone who is like Jesus as a master, he's like Jimi Hendrix. It's like, of course I look up to him. He was great. He was really good at what he did. And I think that he was being accurate when he said the way is narrow. I think he was talking exactly about that. Because here's the deal, all right? Buddha and Siddhartha represents a lower level of chakra activity. I would say starting at about this level here. But because he lived at an earlier age than Jesus. The masters of the age arrive and they represent a color and they represent a speed or a level at which consciousness is moving, and they also represent a viewpoint. And so Siddhartha was here in 500 BC, and that was about 500 years before Jesus. I think that Buddha was at this level, and I think that Jesus was at this level. And I think that in 500 years, humanity evolved and went through here. But I don't know who was the person who was in charge of this turquoise level. I don't know who is the master of the age. But then when we got to this level, what happened? Humanity had evolved. So big emphasis here is that humanity is continually evolving from a super disorganized state. That is what really happened after the fall. He was pushed. You guys know my jokes at this point. He didn't fall, he was pushed. But the fall from grace, or the fall of Atlantis, which is ancient in your present linear state, but is actually concurrent, imminent in your multidimensional time state. And you are in a very, very disorganized state, starting with the red chakra, but there's a master of that age that pretty much lives in the time of primal existence that would be known as hunter-gatherers, a pre-technological time, pre-literacy, minimal technology or tool usage time. But there was a master of that age, and there were other masters that came up in the time before 500 AD. And then there's Buddha, who's the master of his age. And then again, I don't have a name brand guy for this area of your body, but then I definitely have a name brand guy for this guy. And that's Jesus. And we know him from 2,000 years ago. And then the entire past 2,000 years has been the transit between here and what we would consider to be up here, but that's really not accurate. It's between here and your DNA. The violet chakra is at the center of your DNA. So we are at the culmination point. We are at the vertex of this polygon that we're moving through, the place of ultimate refinement. You've been from a very crashed out, rubble-like strewn everywhere, disorganized state through very, very many multiple ages that can last for thousands of years to get focused to the point where you are right now. And where you are right now is at the return journey and self-restoration and self-remembrance as God. And time from here to here has definitely been a time of like going over rubble-strewn ruins and a very, very difficult time. That is actually one of the most vulnerable transits of consciousness, because when people activate, or cultures activate their Christ, they start to see and know on a higher dimensional level. And it's an intuitional level beyond words and beyond rationality. And that can be freeing and it can be amazing, but it is also fallible until you connect with the abstract. So if you're still working on the level of a human anthropomorphic viewpoint and interpretation structure, it is highly fallible in terms of how you ascribe motives and contextualize and comprehend the world. You're still looking at it through a human filter and describing human motives and comprehending things on the human level and even amplifying humanness in the world as if it is the center of the world. That's what it is to be anthropocentric. But in order to move into true ascension, you have to see as an abstract sense, and that's like what my paintings are like. These are abstractions. There is not a human face in here. There's not one face, two eyes, one nose, one mouth, human face. And only like some of my paintings, you know, like that one has representative figures in it, but most of my paintings are abstract. I'm not down on representative paintings. If you are a representative painter and if you paint faces or flowers or figures, I want to see fat ladies. So we love you, fat ladies. You're fun to paint. You have a lot of like nice body parts to paint, but because it's always the F's. Flowers, faces, and fat ladies. I'm sorry, I get very silly now. But my artwork is different. My artwork is mostly abstract, and abstract usually means non-formful and non-representational. When you get into the abstract viewpoint, you are looking at things mathematically, not in the human interpretation structure. So a human judge judges things. Like two people are in the courtroom and one person says like, you know, whatever, like it's, you know, Judge Judy or something like that. Like, you know, like you hit my car, you owe me money. And the other guy's like, it's not my fault, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then the human judge sits there and says, I now render my verdict. Kachunka. You will pay him $200 and then you will make up for the cat that you ran over. Okay, now get out of my courtroom, right? And that's like a loose approximation of justice. Like there's not genuine math going on. There's just a person kind of sensing with their eyes very squintily, like, well, this kind of looks like it would be just like, let's make it like this. Very, very inaccurate. And the soft sciences, like psychology and things like that, they are very soft. They are the mushy sciences. They are not the sciences of like hard-edged truth. All right. So that's like, you know, anytime that you're in English class and you're interpreting poetry, or if you go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, they're assessing your mind. They're not accurate. They're not doing math. It's very different. Like if they put electrodes on your brain and they're like, ah, oh, you're clearly in the delta, you know, brain waves is what's going on over here. Like that is math. That's very different than talking to someone and, you know, someone listens to you and says like, well, I hear that you are sad or you don't like what's going on in your life. Those are two very different things, okay? So in your inner eye, you have different modalities. One is a valid modality, but it is fallible. And that is to interpret the abstract waveforms that you have through the human filter. And you can do that. Just know you're not going to get all the information because some stuff is lost in translation and some stuff doesn't translate. I couldn't find the right word for it. Sorry. It's a transfer. So like if you're a human, you're talking to a rock shrimp. There are some things that are like innately truthful to a rock shrimp and you cannot relate to them. And you cannot know what is truth to the rock shrimp because you don't have gills or antenna. You don't work in the same way. And that's just on your same planet. There's many different types of animals and organisms that your humanness cannot match with, can't comprehend it. Even dogs, even a beautiful dog. Let's see, over here. Yeah, okay, so Cheeky's right over here. And sometimes I don't relate to her because her worldview is so defined by smells. And she smells her way around town. She's guided by a smell in this direction. She sniffs in this direction. When we are going to do our, I have to spell it out, our WALKIES, all right? And, we'll do that soon. So go out the front door and Cheeky stops for a moment and she kind of sniffs. Like she sniffs in that direction, she sniffs in that direction. And then she's like, okay, let's go. Like she is following something that I cannot perceive. And I can't imagine what her world and what her life is like. So I just try to, like accommodate her. I'm like, okay, like I know that she likes to go over to this spot and sniff something over here, and then she's going to take me to the next place and sniff something over there. Like that is important and exciting for her. And so I'm like trying to relate, but I don't really have the equipment to be able to relate. And I imagine that she has similar things that she is just like mystified, like probably, if I'm painting or looking at something or drawing on the computer and I'm using all these colors, she's probably like, I do not know why mom is so interested in all of those colors. Like they don't really smell that different. Like, I have all these different colored pencils or whatever. She's like, I don't know why she's obsessed with these different things. They don't have any smell that's interesting. It's not food related and there's no smell on them. So I as a dog am not interested. But to me, because she's colorblind, dogs are colorblind, the colors are fascinating and important to me, to what I'm doing. All right. So that's just on the same planet. And there's a lot of love between me and my dog, right? Now you have to think about even organisms on another planet. Like how about Jupiter? Jupiter is a gas giant. There's no surface of the planet. I talk about Earth's surface dwellers. You do not have a surface on Jupiter. You can't even talk about like, if there is no real estate in Jupiter. You cannot build a house there. They have no real estate market. So if you're a real estate agent, you are not going to have a job on Jupiter at all. You would be like, this is a cloud over here. It kind of mushes into this cloud over here. There aren't very clear boundaries. I cannot sell property because we cannot cut this into pieces. I know because, like the giant winds on Jupiter are going to blow one cloud into another cloud, like totally different level of existence is what I'm trying to say. And very, very different for you to find common ground with cloud beings or cloud animals that live in the cloudy planet known as Jupiter, where there is no surface. And what would their lives be like? So until you get out of this anthropocentric viewpoint and go into the abstract and exalted viewpoint, then from that viewpoint, you can connect effectively and accurately to a rock shrimp or to a cloud dweller from the planet Jupiter, because you are in a level of abstraction that looks like this. And you look like this, and a rock shrimp looks like this, and cloudy dweller from Jupiter looks like this, a Jupiterian, whoever they are. They look like this too. And there are commonalities that you all have. And the communication that happens on the level of real telepathy happens at that level. So this is the most perilous level because people can be really wildly mistaken. This is also the level where people sometimes reach megalomania and unhealthy proclamations of their own Christhood. And I describe that in the sense of if you are given information when you activate your higher faculties up here, it's like you get a book and you read the first page of the book that says, you are God. And you're like, that's it. I'm God. I'll throw down the book. And you're like, I have to get out there and tell everyone that I'm God. And also I will have to be taking over. I'll be in charge from now on. And I'm going to be directing everything and telling everyone what to do, who to smite, and what we want to do over here. Yeah. And you can't, that's called megalomania. You can't do that because you have to read the rest of the pamphlet. You turn to page 2, it says, and so is everybody else. That is important contextual knowledge. And then you're like, ooh, it's all, I'm God, you're God, all God, right? In a pristine system. And then you move to the 3rd page where it says, this is only true in a pristine system. Please keep reading for more, and hold all of your proclamations until you actually finish the book. Like, this is important stuff. So getting to this level of activating this chakra means that you have access to an enormous amount of more information, but not that you're infallible, not that you're omniscient, not that you don't have more to learn in terms of the wisdom of how to apply your knowledge. And it is definitely not the end of the journey. And it's been a very, very wild roller coaster of the past 2,000 years, as there have been many antichrist and megalomaniac people who have accessed information up here that has been partial and has been destabilizing. So you can imagine, like, when you eat physical food, if it doesn't help you, it can make you feel like you're going to throw up, or you're ill, or whatever, you need to lie down and fall asleep or something like that. Like, it can hurt your whole body. If you eat bad food through here, it goes into your mind. It can destabilize all of your chakras. All the way down the road, it can destabilize your authenticity. It can destabilize your heart. It can destabilize your mind, your feelings, physical body. So the information or the light that you ingest through here is really crucial. We have to talk now about false light, because your chakras are made out of true light, but there is such a thing in our world as false light. And false light is such an oxymoron because by definition, light is truth. And it would be like untrue truth. I'm like, that does not make sense. And I'm very literal. And I don't like those words because they don't make me feel good, because that's not something that's supposed to happen. It would be like unwet water. You can't have dry water. Can't have anhydrous water. That is not a thing. And having false light is also not supposed to be a thing. I'm allergic to the concept of it because you're really not even supposed to have that in the world. I'm like, like, you can't have false light or unwet water. Like, what is this stuff? Why is this supposed to be here? And I've had to spend a lot of my time here as Aurora figuring out effective approaches or responses to unwet water, because you're not supposed to have false light. But we can recognize that it's here. It's here in these types of frequencies, these types of technologies, and also the concepts that those frequencies and technologies send over. I'm gonna officially put you in jail or something, because you keep on not being muted today. You're being like the repeat offender. He always throws me off my game. That's why. Like, there's reasons why it makes me mad. Let's recalculate. And let's take some questions over here. First, let's start with the most recent question from Tom. Thank you for being here. Tom says, you mentioned how FRL can be used to overcome obstacles. Can you please talk about fear, considering how the fears that we avoid are the primary obstacles that we need to overcome to be aligned with our central core timeline? Okay, I will. But first, I'll read the rest of your questions. It's a long question. Can we use FRL to overcome our fears once we have identified them? Compare this shadow work against the aspects of shadow work in the spiritual community that you don't like or support. Yes. So fear, as I've told you, is supposed to be the proximity sensor that tells you when you are getting too close to the membrane of death. Like, if my hand is the membrane of death and this is your consciousness, fear is supposed to only happen when you're getting close. Like, beep, 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 beep. Beep, 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 beep. Get away from here now. It's not supposed to be there. But unfortunately, fear has been repurposed. I want to say it has escaped its enclosure, but it's part of the genetic modification and consciousness reduction agenda that's been going on, that's been perpetrated. So fear didn't just randomly escape its enclosure. This systemic circumstance that you're in called life has been reprogrammed malevolently. And the fears have been reprogrammed to now not just patrol the edge of the membrane of death, but to be directly in front of you on your ascension timeline. So everybody learns, like, you have to go through your fear in order to get back home to God and divinity. But it's BS, it's bull doo-doos, because that fear is out of place. That fear is energy out of place. It's not actually supposed to be there. When you are on your ascension timeline, it's supposed to feel amazing, fantastic. You're supposed to feel like, I am exactly who I'm supposed to be, perfect, doing exactly what I'm supposed to do in every moment and never playing a wrong note. And you're not supposed to feel afraid at all. Like, if you're supposed to marry someone on your ascension timeline, as you're walking towards the marriage ceremony, you're like, dum, 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 dum. You're like, I don't feel afraid at all. I feel awesome. I'm excited about my life moving forward. How about starting a business? If starting a business is on your ascension timeline, you're like, today's the day. I'm starting my LLC, putting together paperwork, signing things. The lawyer is stamping things. The notary is stamping things. And I don't feel afraid. I feel awesome. I feel like, hooray, I'm starting a new financial adventure and I'm going to be rich and help a lot of people. Not like I'm afraid of my failures and will I be able to do this and will anybody buy my stuff? Like, no, you wouldn't feel anything like that. You would feel just total celebration and happiness, because we're supposed to actually calibrate to our true feeling state. So, like, a good example is when I'm playing my music in a pristine environment that does not involve any of this, because this stuff really changes my feeling state. Before they turned that stuff on in 2020, the way that I do my music is like, I start to play, and if it feels cool, then I'm like, I'm on the right road. I'm on the right road. It feels really cool. If it doesn't feel good, then I start to feel like it's not that good. My emotions don't really respond to this. Doesn't really feel that satisfying, nice, or good. And I can kind of tell I'm moving at an angle away from where I'm supposed to be. So it's not like I'm afraid, like, I'm whatever, I'm going to hit the wrong note. I'm going to hit the membrane of death. It's not like that. It's just a feeling of like, I don't really feel like I'm in alignment with the song. Nothing is fitting together. It doesn't feel that great. And as an artist, I've learned how to tune in on that very, very fine level of calibration, so that way I can make good art, good music. Like, good art and good music can feel when you are in the alignment with the central core timeline. You can feel it. And the only way I can describe it is in a very real sense. When I've been recording my music in a moment of musical perfection, I can just tell, I'm like, this song is awesome and people are gonna love it. And it's gonna be important. It's gonna reverberate across the ages. And you might think that that feels like or sounds like self-aggrandizement or something like that, like megalomania, but it's really not. There are some times when you are embedded in the moment. There are no distractions, and you are grooving and playing, and I want to say play the shit out of something. You play it so much and so deeply and so perfectly, and you record it flawlessly. And it's like, if someone was actually there in your room, they would have seen like a beautiful performance. And then press end record, and then it's in the can, and you're like, that's a song for the ages. You can tell, you can feel it. And I have felt that sometimes on some songs, and certainly at some moments when I'm soloing on some songs. And also I have felt it with some of my artwork, like as I am putting the last finishing touch, because it's really hard to be in the groove at every single moment of a painting, because a painting can take like years to paint. So I'm not always like feeling like artistically illuminated at every moment of making a painting. Like, sometimes when I'm in a song, I'm like, I'm white hot, artistically illuminated throughout that whole entire song, but it lasts for 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So yeah, I know several years to make a panel is not the same, but there are moments when I'm making maybe like the very last finishing touches on a panel, and I just feel like kachunka, like everything fits together, and I'm like, this is an amazing moment. Or like, I finished the painting and you kind of like prop it up and kind of like stand back and look at it, and you can just feel it. You can feel it inside. You're like, this is important. This is big stuff. I just did a thing, and I feel it. And you feel the momentous sense of having accomplished something. So what I'm doing right now is describing to the opposite of fear, because the opposite of fear is this sense of celebration and victory and triumph that you have when you're on the right track. And you're supposed to move through your life feeling that feeling like, yeah, like, F yeah, did it, did a thing. Life is amazing. This stuff and dark magic is what has been stopping people from being accurately guided by those inner sensations. So dark magic is ancient, and it's pretty much, you know, the destabilization of the chakras and things that take people away from themselves, and the repurposing of fear so that it's right in front of your path and you have to do it. So it's really, people have calibrated now to the sense of like, okay, you got big a big appointment with the lawyer today. I'm going to sign that LLC. Oh, I'm shaking. I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen, but I have to be strong and go forward and do it anyway. And you kind of like square your shoulders and you go in there and you sign the paperwork and you're like, yep, I don't know who my customers are. I don't know what manufacturing is. I don't know how to do any of this, but I just signed the papers and somehow I'm making a company. And then you have to move through your fears where you're like, I'm afraid if I fail. And you're, you know, like, I'm afraid about this. I'm afraid about that, but you do it anyway and you come out the other side. But none of that is the way your journey is supposed to be. And same thing with marriage. Like as you're walking up the aisle, dum, 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 and you're like, I'm afraid. What happens? What happens if he doesn't love me? What happens if this and that? What if we can't have babies? What if our house burns down? What if this? What if that? And then you're like, well, I'm just gonna have to, you know, go forward and believe that we can build this partnership anyway. And he's afraid too, and we'll both do our best and move forward. And then, you know, you kind of like move forward in the relationship and you face all of your fears and you talk with the other person about your fears and everything. Like that's very, like, that's a movie. You're used to that. That's almost like a cliche. It's so common in your world, but it's totally not how you're supposed to experience your life. And like face all of your fears and then come out the other side and be like, it wasn't so bad. And I learned and I grew. And, you know, I like that movie called Defending Your Life because it's a comic masterpiece. But there are some aspects in terms of the inaccuracies of mentorship. You can't be guided by that movie because it tells you in the end that in order to like make it to the next consciousness level, what you have to do is face your fears. Like that's the real problem, that you have to deny the very real feedback of the cosmic infrastructure that tells you maybe you're going in the wrong direction, supersede those negativity signals and do it anyway. And that's not necessarily a positive way to go forward, because like when you have check engine lights on the dashboard, like you should actually check your engine. You shouldn't be like, I'm sure to check engine light, everything is fine. Because that's what athletes do. My friend, I told you about her already, is a lovely super athlete. And she just learns like, keep going. Even if your body is saying like, stop, then keep going. And this is how you do this. But my friend has also kind of gotten like into older decades. And she's like, yeah, well, the things that used to work don't work anymore because I used to always tell myself to keep going. And what I actually need to do sometimes is rest and respect my body and not just always keep going. So sometimes you actually need to check the engine and not just keep going. It's not just a idiot light, and it's a real light, and you really got to do something about it. So it can help us to get through this life. Just be like, they're just check engine lights. Keep going forward. But it instills in us a negative personality pattern that when we actually do go into a pristine world, like imagine now you evolve and you come forward into a whole new world. Okay, good. Now I'm singing Disney, but you come forward into a whole new world and everything is different here and you don't have the same erroneous fears, but you've learned, like, even if you feel afraid, keep going forward. And like in this world, like fears are sensible. And they're actually keeping you safe. They're actually keeping you away from doing stupid things, but you've learned to go through your fears. And so maybe you're with other people and you're like, I think I should jump off this cliff. And they're like, no, don't. You're like, but I'm afraid. It's clearly on my path. It's like, no, you're afraid for a reason. You're not supposed to jump off this cliff without a parachute. Like, no, that would be a wrong thing to do. So everybody's going to need a huge amount of rehab. By the time we make it to a whole new world, we're going to have to learn about how we've been miscalibrated. So I told you this story too many times, but I'm going to tell you again. Like how I worked in custom framing in a very entry-level position, and the mat cutting machine was totally miscalibrated. It was 3/16 off in one direction and 1/16 off in another direction. And I always had to customize everything that I did in order to accommodate that. And I was not allowed to move the stickers. And so when I moved to the next job, that I got like a better job in a better frame shop and they were properly calibrated there. I had to recognize, like, I am in a new position now. This machine actually functions correctly. I no longer need to accommodate miscalibrations. So each one of us is going to need I want to say cellular, but a soul rehab when you achieve the next level, to recognize a lot of these are dysfunctions that I developed as a response to a dysfunctional world, but I now need to release my dysfunctions because I'm finally in a non-dysfunctional world. And that will be very, very amazing when that actually happens. Okay. So flying rainbow lasagna is a way to be able to overcome obstacles. That is correct. That would be like something that your body can't do. So in my experience, I came into this body with a lot of neurological difficulties from brain damage. And that meant I could not get a signal from point A to point B. There was no bridge to bring the neurological signal there. So it was not like I was afraid. What my obstacle was there's no bridge. So what I had to do is create a higher dimensional bridge to connect these two places, either a portal here and a portal here, or folding the fabric of time and space closer so that point A and point B could communicate together. And that is how I got my body functional, so that I can do all these types of cool things that I do now. And that is different to me than overcoming a fear. So the fear would have been like, oh no, like I'm afraid, like what if my body can't be healed, and then I'll just be here in the world and not be able to do all sorts of cool things. I actually never had that as a consideration. So I didn't have that fear. I simply had the knowledge that with flying rainbow lasagna, I am able to make the solution. It's like pasta factory. Like I can make any shape of pasta that I need. I can make the solution that I need in being here. And perhaps that's a unique position to me, but I do not feel levels of fearfulness because I can definitely make the things that I need. So that doesn't mean that I don't have primal fears, like being afraid of spiders. Like, of course, I'm afraid of things like that, like yuck, spiders and snakes and gross stuff and sharks. Like, yeah, no, I'm afraid of all of those things. They're horrible. And I don't like to watch horror movies either. Like, I'm very afraid of murderers and people that want to skin you alive and all this. So, like, of course, I'm afraid of that stuff. But I don't marinate in those mind states at all. And I'm not really connecting with the fear state as something that rules me in my life, or I don't find it titillating in any way to kind of like feel that afraidness, fear. So mostly what I do is I move forward in a sense of certainty in my life. And that certainty, like I can use my artwork as an example, a very clear vision of how I want my artwork to use. I'm very certain. So I'm not wavering and vacillating. Some artists might be like, well, I don't know, like, do I want to paint a flower? Or maybe I want to paint a dog. I don't know. Like, do I want to paint a porcupine? Like, they don't know. But I'm very clear. I'm like, I know what I want to paint. I want to paint this. Give me the paintbrush. Give me the paintbrush. And paint it. It's a sense of certainty. So I don't feel a sense of insecurity or destabilization. I'm very certain on what I want to make with my artwork. I'm very certain on what I want to make with my music. I'm very certain on the direction that I want my life to go. So I'm not a person where I'm like maybe I should have gotten married. Maybe I should have done this or should have done. I'm like, no, I know exactly who I am and I know exactly what I'm here for and what I want to be doing. I respect people that are here to get married, but that's not my path. So the certainty does come from my connection that is it's supernatural. It's beyond the levels of being here, because I came in with a lot already. So that I don't relate to certain fears that people have, because like when Harry met Sally and she's afraid that her biological clock is ticking and that she missed the boat with marriage. Like I don't feel that fear because I'm like, that's not relevant to my life. Like I don't have a fear of FOMO, fear of missing out on a lot of these things, because I think that some people have fear and regret in retrospect, where they have a sense of like they're afraid of the life path that they chose, that they don't feel a sense of centeredness and like being in alignment with no self-conflict about their life choices. Some people are like, oh, like I married Mr. B, but maybe I should have married Mr. A. And maybe my life would have been better. That's a funny mistake that my mouth made. But people regret themselves all the time. Like maybe I shouldn't have moved to, this town, or I shouldn't have moved away from there. My life would be better if I had stayed there, or I shouldn't have left that job, or I shouldn't have left that person. Like people definitely feel levels of regret, which is really fear of their own choices and fear of self-responsibility. So all of that also really changes because I mean, like, not only do I come here with a strong mission and purpose, but I am precog, and that helps me to be able to anticipate and sense the end result of my choices. So I do not mostly regret my choices because mostly I made them with full consideration of the reverberations that would happen. Like if I choose this, it will be like this. And if I choose this, it will be like this. So I've been able to make good informed choices. So I can bring that forward in order to say, like, each one of you, if you've been flying blind up until this point, at a certain point, your higher faculties do come online, and then you have much less regret and a lot more clarity in terms of the life choices that you're making. And that is definitely the next chapter that is coming for humanity. So you won't have regrets or the fear of missing out. The FOMO is from what if I had chosen a different path? What if could I be that version of me over there? And that's not a positive life posture because it fragments and kind of breaks you apart, it fractures you apart, and it puts part of your consciousness on this timeline and part of your consciousness on another timeline. And that's not healthy. Whatever you do, you should be fully invested on your timeline. And hopefully you are fully in control of your life where you're making your own choices, not being pushed around or influenced by others. So that way, whatever timeline you're on, you're like, this is my optimum timeline. I chose this for a reason. I am here for my own purpose, and I celebrate and take responsibility for placing myself here now. And then when you have your huge victory, then you're like, I am awesome. Good job, me. I placed myself on the right timeline. And then you get the all of that energy flowing back to you from having no regrets and from making good choices. So flying rainbow lasagna can help you to overcome obstacles, but it's different than living fearlessly. I think that living fearlessly equates to living in levels of empowerment and it being informed and having good contextualization so that you can make informed choices. So FRL to overcome fears. Like I'm still afraid of sharks or spiders or whatever. Like I FRL all the time, but I'm not like, I don't want to watch any of those gross nature documentaries of these like scary things. I don't want to watch any of these like nature, not nature documentaries, but any of these like real world documentaries that are about like whatever, people that had their face ripped off by a tiger, or there's lots of things like that. And there's also lots of that on social media too, that some of them are people's stories, personal blogs and vlogs, video logs and stuff like that are about like terrible things that can happen to you, whatever, flesh-eating bacteria, being shot in the face, and everything. I'm like, I don't want any of that in my life. So I am actually very, very selective about the media that I consume and the consciousness thought structures that I connect with. And I really, really selectively connect with the consciousness thought structures that are about having a comfortable life, my body being in good shape, and moving forward in a positive way. And because you know what, when you align with like whatever the story, like some guy's face got bit off by a tiger, and then the problem is if you think like, that makes me feel afraid when I watch that story. What if it were me? What if it happened to me? The misidentification, because what you do is you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes when the truth is like, that's that guy's life. The truth is you don't work for the circus and that would never happen to you. And don't put your mind there because it's not your life. It's not your path. It's that guy's path. And so that is another danger that happens at the level of Christ consciousness as the inner eye is starting to awaken. False identification. False identification can happen with something that's evil when you're like, I am you and you are me and we are one together. I'm going to hug a demon, kumbaya. And that is not okay. And also you can have false identification when you are feeling too closely someone else's story. And again, it could be a story like someone, whenever they ate some raw oysters, got poisoned and had all 4 limbs chopped off. And you're like, what if that was me? It's like, that's not you. That's not you. It's not your story and it doesn't have to be your story. And if you're really concerned about that, don't eat oysters from, these areas that have that bacteria in them. And because all of that is like brings you to the membrane of death. When you start to think about like the dangers that other people have faced, it drains your life energy and you go towards their negative drained out state, and you don't need that at all. So definitely not a positive thing, because everybody's afraid of dying or getting your limbs chopped off by eating raw oysters. Like, everybody is afraid of that. None of us want that to happen to us or our loved ones at all. Same thing with car accidents or any of these things. Just like all of these are really negative, bad things. Cannot put your mind into that direction, because it literally changed the dance of the DNA. Now you have to start to understand, when you're scrolling through, if you are TikToking, Insta facing, or tweeting Xing, whatever it is, that algorithm is not by accident. They put that crap in front of you on purpose. And sometimes they put the videos there that are about the guy that got his face eaten off by a tiger, or someone who ate raw oysters and whatever, had their limbs chopped off as a result. It's literally a negative spell that is trying to bring you and implant these fears into it, bring you towards the membrane of death through that fearfulness. So you have to limit the stories that you ingest. You have to limit your exposure to them. If other people bring you your stories, please keep your boundaries really strong. And you do that by saying, that is their life experience. That is not my life experience. That is their life. And that it doesn't mean that you're not caring, you're a cold monster. You're not. You are not required in any way to participate in someone else's misery and to be afraid that it's going to happen to you. No, 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 no. Okay, so now let's talk about how much I hate shadow work. Because you say, compare this shadow work against the aspect of shadow work in the spiritual community that you don't like or support. So I didn't even know quite how to describe any valid or accurate shadow work, because I don't know if it exists. I think that shadow work is something that people have been doing in modern psychology, self-help, and spiritual seeking communities as a way of trying to deal with the negative invaders that are on the membrane of death and in people's own DNA, their own implants. And I think that these are band-aid approaches at best, that none of it looks to the root cause, which is like, you have something wrong in your house. You got someone sleeping on the couch who's not supposed to be there, and you got to get rid of that invader. And that all of these, the language therapy and all of these seekings, workshoppings, and all this stuff, it's just different ways of being able to articulate and describe the discomforts that people are feeling at having an invader in their body. And instead of dancing around or trying to incorporate the invader, I think it's time to kick out the invader. And the invader is a genetic and a consciousness invader. And so the invader is any time that you're able to identify these non-loving, non-life affirming, non-longevity and coherent bringing impulses. And so that's a lot of stuff like addictions and substance abuses, self-destructions, suicidal ideations, eating disorder. All of those things are not actually you. All of those things are actually implanted invaders, distortions, and things that twist your own truthful experience in life. And they are impulses that come down the DNA line. So I didn't talk enough about this in today's class, but thought forms are real. I was going into it before and I got a little bit drawn aside. So humanity looks at cognition and the experience of mentation as a biochemical / electrical experience in the brain. And it is that, but that is secondary to the primary experience, which is that you're interacting with the thought form, and the thought form is its own unique, alive presence. So like thought form exists flying around in the world. Like, think of it like a little neutrino, like a little high energy particle that's like flinging itself across, like all these thought forms are flying around. And then there's your brain, and I call your brain your fatty idea catcher. Okay, it's a jello like array, gelatinous, that is similar to these projects that humans build to be able to catch and observe neutrinos. Your brain is made mostly of fat, so that's all of the myelin sheaths that are around the impulse carrying nerve fibers in your brain. So that's the fatty gelatinous aspect of your brain, and your glial cells, like the thing that holds everything together. And your brain is like a vat that catches these impulses that go through. So these little high energy particles fling through your brain and they leave behind them a waveform. Just like, if you dive through the water, into the water, there's waves that happen as an end result. So the particle and its vector is an alive thing that's in the abstract world that is a thought. And you have to really choose which thoughts you align with. So just because a thought flings through your brain and you experience it with your fatty idea catcher does not mean that you have to actually embrace that thought or think that thought or revivify that thought or give birth to that thought. That you live in a world where there's all of these neutrinos flinging themselves through your brain all the time. And that's even before and beyond unnatural type of emitters of frequencies in the world. Even before they invented electricity and Bluetooth and all that stuff, these little thought forms were flying around. This is the essence of free will, although it's more difficult for us to express free will in this time and place because there are the artificial thoughts that are sometimes beamed into our mind and overwhelm the mind. But in a pristine system, you get to choose. You're like, a thought just came through my mind. You're like, that's a terrible thought. I don't like that thought. That thought is not me. You're like, get out of here. And it can be anything. Sometimes it can be a thought about a behavior. That would be like, let's say you're walking down the street and you see someone's flower pot, or decoration in front of their house. And you're like, I'm going to take that. And it's like you're not a person who wants to steal stuff. This is a good example of shadow work. Totally not an impulse arising from inside of you. But sometimes there is this neutrino that flings through your brain and it says, take it. And that's not you. And so what you do is you're like, edit that out. That's not me. I don't know where that thought came from, but I'm most certainly not going to steal that lady's flower pot. All right. And the problem with shadow work when it's flawed is that it requires a person to embrace that initial impulse as if it arose internally. When it did not arise internally, it came externally. So flawed shadow work, you can sense now, is almost like being an interrogation where it's like, you wanted to steal that flower pot, didn't you? And you're like, no, I'm totally innocent. I want to, no, shut up. You want to steal that flower pot. And if you want me to stop bullying you, then you better just agree to my proposal. You're a flower pot stealer. You just better realize that. And it's very disempowering to the person who is trying to learn to express their free will. And you can sense the bullying aspect to it and the torture / coercion aspect to it, which is even more exacerbated in this time of the Techno Inquisition. Those impulses do not arise from you, and you are not required to claim them as if they do. You can claim the impulses that genuinely arise from you, and you can also claim the selectivity that you have in the world. So let's say you're being inundated by an amalgamation of various different impulses, some of which are divine and angelic, easy to claim, and some of which are neutral, and some of which are very malevolent and dark and demonic and evil. And you're not required to claim all of them. You can say, truthfully, these ones arose internally from me. And you can also truthfully say, I choose to align with these. Like, what if you have your own flower pots and you have a sudden impulse inside of you that's like, I just want to give this one away. The impulse towards generosity. You're like, I'm going to claim that. That's me. That's the real me. And then you knock on your neighbor's door. You're like, hey, I had this extra flower pot. Do you want it? Let me give it to you. I'm going to have a gift. So that selectivity, that filtering is a major aspect of not only self-archaeological excavation, but self-construction. And it is part of how we define ourselves and create ourselves as egos in the world. You are a master sculptor. You are here chiseling your form, but also sometimes you might add. So what you're doing is taking away, carving away, scraping away things that aren't really you, but then also at other times adding or constructing to the parts of you that are you, or that should be you, or that you wish to be you. And that's fair also. You're like, if you don't have the innate impulses of generosity or sharing or whatever arising from it, you'd be like, I want to be more generous. You add that clay to your form. You add and construct that. You make a concerted effort. And through making that effort, you become more in that way. So there's an enormous amount. I call your life is your masterpiece, very intentionally, because in becoming the ascended master and being that version of yourself that's on the central core timeline going up, you're really constructing yourself in the image of who you would like to be. And who you would like to be is not an imposter of other ascended masters. Like, you know what? Jesus had one outfit. He had sandals and a robe, and it worked for him. But I am very different. You can tell. And I'm like, I need color. And also, I need variety. And I'm going to have to. So, like, he did his thing. But clearly, I am not a wandering mendicant with one outfit. I have many outfits. And so that's really important. And I'm being a little bit like silly and everything like that. But we love and admire Jesus, the wandering mendicant, but you don't have to live your life like him, because you know what else? Like, I need music equipment and a studio and a place to, hang my dresses in order to do the things that I need to do in the world. So his life is different. His sharing was different. His art was different. And you must, in your self-construction and self-definition and creation of who you want to be on your ascended master timeline, you get to make an enormous amount of aesthetic choices about who you are and what you want to be like and what you want your level of mastery to be like. And that's so important to recognize the individuality of your own artistic expression cannot be defined by other great artists. Jimi Hendrix is not defined by Mozart as an artist. Mozart wrote this like super fruity music for guys in powdered wigs, all right? And Jimi Hendrix wrote a completely different type of music for people that were, like tripping on acid in a mud field and running around naked, all right? These are different types of artists, but what they have in common is that they both followed their own, musical nature to a level of, genius artistry. So becoming an ascended master is about following and creating your own unique path and defining yourself, and not defining yourself in the comparison to others who have come before, or what is the ideal, or what are you supposed to. Because if Jimi Hendrix did what you are supposed to based upon Mozart, then he would be, wearing a powdered wig and like playing music that no one would relate to in his time. So have to be who you are, because you're who you are in your time. And Jesus is from 2,000 years ago, and you are who you are in this time. So you have to also get to this level where you start to attain and access your own Christhood, but then not stop there. That's a big thing. A lot of people reach a plateau at this level. And I know now I'm speaking beyond Tom's original question. I used it as a starting point, but thank you very much. And I'll get hopefully more in alignment with focusing on what you specifically asked. But I did want you to think that I'm just speaking only to Tom on this. What it is to become at the level of Christ and to begin expressing yourself and seeing the world at that level can't just be like, well, I attained Christhood. Dun, 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 the end. Now I'm sitting on the couch, I'm doing nothing. No, your marathon is not over, and that is not the ultimate in attainment. You must keep going. So that's really another one of the perilous pitfalls of people who get to this level, that they think that they have achieved total enlightenment and that they are all that, and that they are there with all the answers, and that they are not really all that and there with all the answers. That is spiritual egotism, and it's really important to keep going on the marathon, because once you go further, then you start to get to the level of pure abstraction. And then when you get there, then you're like, now I really get it. And if you had stopped all the way back here on the marathon, then you would have stayed mired in a very limited and mistaken viewpoint. And you have to keep going. So if you already think like, not only like I've achieved enlightenment, I know everything, I'm stopping my marathon, and also now I'm going to hang out a sign that says An enlightened guru answers 5 cents, like from the Peanuts comic book or whatever. She's got like a little lemonade stand. She gives answers for 5 cents. Rates would be definitely more these days. Well, you start to be like, I think I'm a teacher. I'm going to teach everyone else. This is also another dangerous pitfall of megalomania, when people have an artificial or a natural awakening of their higher faculties. And then they're like, that's it. I know everything. I'm ready to share, tell everyone how to live their lives. I was like, no, like you don't know everything. But it's appropriate when you get to this level, even if you have an insight, you don't have to say that you know everything, and you don't have to try to control other people's lives. You just have to share your vision. That's it. And that's authenticity at this level helps you to be truthful at this level. So you also have to master authenticity. And when you come forward with spiritual insights, a lot of times people will try to paint you in the light of Jesus, and they will expect all sorts of things of you. Like they might be like my child is sick, like, and also can you raise the dead? And be like, no, I don't do this. Like, I don't do windows. I just do this, and this. Or you can just be like, look, like, no, like I had one insight about this that is valid, but I do not know how to raise the dead. And also just, you might want to reconsider that, because maybe people are dead for a reason. And that's important, because I don't want you guys to stop your self-expression and to be like, I don't know anything. I can never do anything until I achieve, my total illumination. I'm like, no, you can share along the journey who you are and what you are, but you just have to be authentic about that and be like, this is my viewpoint for right now. This is who I am, or what I know to be truthful right now. And that I hold the door open. I'm going to change and grow, and I might know more or differently tomorrow or in the future, and I'll always upgrade and change. And I hope that you guys can sense that from me, because actually I don't really see on this level, and I mostly see on this level, but I am always recognizing that I'm refining my vision. So now when I share with you, to tell you the truth, I don't really see on this level very much at all. Mostly I see on this level of pure abstraction. I am happiest and most comfortable on this level of pure abstraction. I'm like, numbers, this is me. Numbers, math, like I love you, I hug you. Numbers and math, you're my friends. I love you so much. I'm so comfortable in the world of numbers and math. But when I have to be in the level of like human anthropomorphic viewpoint stuff, that's about like human emotions, human dynamics, human history, human psychology, I'm like, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. I don't really know that much about people, and I don't really feel that comfortable in the realm of human interpretation, and I kind of don't know what I'm doing. And please don't make me interpret poetry. Brain doesn't work that way. So it's comical, I'm certain, but we have to laugh about that. Of course, I'm trying to educate myself and to learn more about human dynamics, human psychology, things like that. But I'm still very, very bad at interpreting poetry and allegories and things that are non-literal. So my brain does not work that way. So I've, literally fleshed out my comprehension of the human viewpoint more, so that mostly it was so that I could help people's biology more and help people more in their lives, because people do sometimes, in session work, I do help people in their human interactions, their human dynamics, their business dynamics. Like I've had to educate myself on all these levels, but I did not come here with those skills in my toolbox of abilities. I came here with the ability to know about abstractions and high-level patternings and pattern recognition and abstract mathematical truth, and still have funny, hilarious misconceptions and miscommunications with people on the human level. But now most of the people that are in my life know about who I am and what my brain is like. And so misspellings, misunderstandings, misconceptions, now we mostly laugh about them. But boy, I have many funny stories that were about things that happened to me in previous relationships. When sorry, there was a delivery man, that's why I got a little bit distracted. Did not comprehend things on a human level. Like I'm very abstract. So the challenge is that on an abstract level, when you get up to here, everything is very exact. Like 1 + 1 = 2. It's not like estimated 1 + 1 = an estimated amount. But when you're working on the human level, like you have to estimate a lot and you don't know like exactly how angry a person is or exactly what their feelings are or exactly what is right. It's just like I told you, the judges in these human courtrooms that are like, all right, like you owe this guy roughly this much and you owe this guy roughly this much, and we're just kind of say this. Like if you are truly literate about time, you would be able to see exactly how much the one person destabilized another person's chakras. You got to add 3 degrees of energy to make your chakras go upright. And then this guy over here, like you're going to need to have whatever, $300 because that's how much money this guy took away from you in this, and that's going to restore you. It would be a lot more accurate and none of this estimation, loosey-goosey, poetic allegory type of crapola. So the world that you've been in for the past 2,000 years has been loosey-goosey, poetic allegory crapola. You're like, how come the Prince of Peace came and we had so much destabilization afterwards? Because we've been loosely estimating the truth of reality and not actually calculating it in total fine detail. And please know that you have, like I told you, each one of these chakras represents a master of the age. And you just changed and you're in a new age. But when I say new age, everyone's like, new age, like that's not a very good thing because new age has been all hijacked. I know. Can also sing that song. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Sing it in your head. Come on. It's good. It is the dawning of a new age. And we are moving out of the previous age, which is the age of Pisces and the age of the dark blue chakra. And we are moving into the age of Aquarius. Aquarius. Okay, I'll stop. Which is the violet chakra. And I also sometimes joke that it is the age of responsibility. Age of responsibility, yeah. But it's funny because that whole age of Aquarius and that musical that I'm musicaling about from the 1960s, those people were not responsible. They were about like free love and taking a lot of drugs and polyamory and everything that is like the opposite of self-responsibility. So I do not condone their bohemian lifestyle. They were not being responsible. But the new age, that is the age of responsibility and is exemplified by the violet chakra, is an age of self-direction, where there is not an external authority figure or an external priest or judge or educator or mommy or daddy who tells you what to do, but there's only your innate internal directive. And the innate internal directive actually comes from your own chakra system. It actually comes from the chorus of inner voices that add together into a correct amalgamation or recipe of truth that you listen to and that guides you on your own customized curriculum through your life that helps to shape, sculpt, and hone you to become the greatest version of what you can be. And that is what it is to be on that central core timeline and to make it back to the infinity point. And this is actually not a rough estimation. There actually is a real equation, a calculation, like the perfect aurora equals perfect aurora over here. Like this plus this plus this plus this is this plus a dash of this times this divided by this equals perfect aurora over here. And that's it. And on the anthropomorphic level, you might argue like, well, is the perfect aurora the one that wears like this dress, or does she wear a different dress, or is she wearing only, sandals and one robe and she's wandering around? Like, no, that's definitely not the perfect aurora. So then you're like, well, what's the perfect aurora look like? The answer is non-negotiable. But this is the algorithm for the perfect version of aurora equates to this person over here. And please know that that applies to your own lives as well. You do not have to act like a Jesus or Buddha or Aurora or anyone, not that I'm, whatever, elevating myself in the same mouth sentence as all of those other guys. Just trying to say, like, you are not meant to impersonate anyone else, only to embody your own levels of greatness and to be guided by your own beautiful, reciprocal, perfectly calibrated chakra system to be the person that you're meant to be. And this also brings you beyond the levels of like competition and what's the word? Criticism from others. Like if you're following your own inner directive and listening to the guidance that comes from each layer of your own chakra system and your own divine self, then you really know you're like, you're making your artwork and your life according to your own standards. And even if I came along and I said, hey, like you should really use a different color, you'd be like, well, thanks very much, but no, like that's not right for me. I'm doing what's right for me. And that's it. That's literally how I am with my artwork. If someone else came along and they were like, Aurora, your artwork is too colorful and you should do nothing but a monochromatic beige, I'd be like, no, that's not really the right approach for me. My artwork is inherently rainbow colored and I'm doing that for a purpose. But thank you for your suggestion that I should be a beige painter, but that's not right for me. But maybe some other guy, or maybe you. All right. And that's how you go through life. That is actually a very, very healthy way to go through life. So that none of that is megalomania, because also you move away from imposing yourself upon others. As you really move into these comprehensive viewpoints of the exalted viewpoint, you begin to really see how the curriculum is so unique for each person that there is not really a way to make one overarching pronouncement. As people who are in megalomania come forward and they're like, everybody listen to me. I have one message for all of you, and it's the same for all of you. Please gather around. You can't do that. As you get to real ascended levels, you're like, oh, that guy's totally different than that guy. That guy's totally different from that guy. And none of these guys, it's not going to be the same advice for health and beauty for any of these people. They all have wildly different levels of, everything that they need in their life. Everything must be completely individualized and personalized. And so that's why you have to move away from mass movements, because mass movements are really about conformity and putting people into groups and making everybody act in exactly the same way. Like everybody needs to optimize their unique biology, their unique levels of cognition and what their viewpoint is in their mind and their unique creative aspects. You're really going to come out to a curriculum that is unique to every single person that is here. So Tom, I hope that I did cover effectively what you were talking about with your fears. And I also hope that I got more effectively into what is genuine shadow work. I think genuine shadow work is when you are able to set these boundaries inside of yourself about who you really are as consciousness and what's your real motivation versus the neutrinos that fly through your fatty idea catcher, or something that was culturally imposed upon you, like religious or government, religion or like capitalism or communism, a government mind state that is imposed upon you, or any other form of external structure, thought structure. Like you're not any of those things. You're these innate desires that arise, but to be able to make the distinction between what arises internally versus what's been plastered upon you externally. And then how about in terms of like when you feel fear, like, so what do I do? Like there are some times when I feel fear when I'm like, you couldn't pay me to do certain things. I'm not going to do it. Like whatever, deep sea diving, like going under the water with one of these, scuba breathers or whatever. Like I'm not going to do that. Okay. It does not sound like a fun time to me at all. That does not mean that I have to go and do that in order to face my fear. It means like there might be a very real reason why I don't want to have like crushing pressures on top of my brain and go down to the bottom of the ocean. Like what is so important at the bottom of the ocean? Like why do I have to do that? Why really? Why? What is down there? Nothing. The answer is nothing. And so, yeah, I feel like that feels like a valid fear or a valid distaste. There's a lot of things that are distasteful. There's a lot of things that are non-optimal, and you are not required to participate in negative, I would say, distasteful reality structures. And maybe let's even just close that portal in terms of everybody's consciousness and expectation, because if people think like, there's something to learn from fears, there's something to learn from diseases, there's something to learn from injuries and accidents, there's something to learn from marrying the wrong person, there's something to learn from getting your skull crushed under deep sea diving conditions. Like there's nothing to learn from any of those things. Like I don't think that you're here for that, and you don't have to present yourself from this, because if you think like there's something to learn from this, then you're going to get more of that. And that is the truth of what we're starting to move into in the age of responsibility. you get more of what you expect and what you align with and what you engage with. And sometimes engaging with things is like to not actively remove them from your life. So like if you work for a business and your boss is corrupt and you don't confront people that are corrupt in your office, you're basically voting for more of that in your life because you didn't confront them and you didn't say like, hey, like you're stealing from other people and this is wrong and I don't want to be a part of this type of business. You're pretty much saying like you want to be part of a corrupt business because you didn't set a boundary against that. So you tell the things with your behavior. You tell the universe with your behavior what things you want more of. And if you just are passive and you don't say no to some things, you will get more of it because you didn't say no, thank you. I don't want that. So please know that you are very much more in a driver's position than has been recognized and acknowledged, and claim that position in saying no, thank you to things that are non-optimum time structures. So if non-optimum time structures are like, well, I think you have to learn by having both arms and both legs amputated. It's your fear after all, right? You're afraid of that. And you're like, I'm afraid of that, but I don't want to learn that as my curriculum. No, thank you. Please know that that is your prerogative to say that in the cosmos, and that really the time field itself doesn't want you to have to learn through negative injuries and difficulties. That is the total misnomer. That idea that like God or some benevolent entity, benevolent Jesus or the benevolent time field, that anybody who's positive would set you up with any kind of amputation, degradation, horrible abuse type of timeline. That's not actually truthful. No, things that are benevolent want you to have a happy, good life. So you and your chakras need to conspire together for you to have a happy, good life. Be like, hey, chakras, let's have a talk. Do you want to get all 4 limbs amputated? Like, no, I don't. I want to have a good life. Chakras like, I want to have a good life too. Let's keep all of our limbs. Let's avoid the questionable seafood. All right. Avoid anything that's going to bring us in this level of, a direction of destruction, and continue to move forward in the things that we are in charge of in our life, so that we avoid negative time structures. All right. First, there's one more question, but let me talk to Kim Rose. She says, I received an osteopathic treatment and my doctor said that my ex-husband was quote unquote in my crown chakra. How is that possible? She cleared it. How did she do that? I'm not certain. I can't speak to what this osteopath did. I certainly hope that they helped you out. Perhaps, and this is like maybe not the right forum to be able to talk about this because it's a little bit, private or whatever. But one interpretation would be that like, you and your ex-husband were in sexual intercourse, and that does quantum entangle people together. It does bring your DNA together. You might have created offspring or potential offspring on another timeline. And so that is one way in which your DNA/crown chakra connection to divinity could be intertwined with another person, but I am not sure if that's what's going on in that circumstance. And I would have to like focus, go into you and your husband, ex-husband, to be able to sense that. And so I don't have the bandwidth to do that right now. And I don't know if I should do that in a classroom setting in front of other people. It's more for something private. But when you say she cleared it, how did she do that? I am not sure of how she cleared it or what her modality would be for doing that. So I can't speak to that question. All right, good. All right, but thank you. But you can contact me for more information about that. Mike says, OMG, loved and LOL throughout the Discord. Thank you, Master Aurora. Bravo. Off to FRL with the sun. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Michelangelo. And that's actually, I think, a perfect thing for me to end and complete upon. I'm always so pleased. Thank you for being in the class. And thank you to the people that appreciate my rather, I don't want to say twisted, unusual sense of humor and lightheartedness. Mary Ellen says, thank you and have a good night. Very welcome. Good to see you too. Thank you guys for allowing me to be not always an extremely serious professor, as I am not a very serious, dry professor. And I do really like to add humor and to help you to engage with the materials, especially when it's, very high level, abstract, abstruse stuff. But also, I recognize that sometimes we talk about things that are challenging or triggering emotional topics in the non-pristine environment that we're in, and humor really does help. It helps me to be able to acknowledge and speak about things that are difficult and that have already caused trauma in our lives or in our world. And humor and lightheartedness are a way to be able to take away the heavy emotions from that, so that we can kind of look at it, comprehend it, and maybe enzymatically begin to get the nutrients out of it, get some nutrients of comprehension out of the experience, and clear the obstacles of what's really supposed to be there. So if you want to know the truth, I'll just end on this. We're all already facing our worst fears. And this is from ancient Coherent Atlantis. We're in Atlantis, and we're in that breath holding in moment of like, oh, we're about to ascend. And we're so happy holding in our breath, like we're about to go to Disneyland. I mean, get Sylvia's face. I hope the thumbprint doesn't choose that for my thumbnail. And about to get rug pulled. About to have the worst thing that can happen, on the verge of ascension. We're about to go to Disneyland. Wah, wah. No, you're not. Rug pulled and turned into mortals and brought into this world of supreme iniquity. And that is not a very good thing at all. And the fear is also magnified fractally as we're about to ascend, but then this stuff goes up in 2020, rug pulled. You're facing your worst fear, which is, what if you're having a great moment with tons and tons of momentum and you almost ascend, and then some big giant evil doo-doo gets in front of your path? What are you going to do? And stands right in front of the path of ascension, says, I am the giant evil primordial doo-doo, and you must go through me in order to be able to make it to your ascension enlightenment moment. You're literally facing that right now. And you're figuring out what you're going to do in that moment. You're not going to just lay down and die. You're not going to fail, but you don't really know how you're going to respond or what's the solution. So you will find it. The answer is you will find, make, or create, or generate a solution, and we will ascend very effectively. And Mary Ellen says, yes. And Avril says, thank you as always. Greatly appreciate your wisdom. You're very welcome. Paige, great class as always. Thank you, teacher Aurora. You are welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you to the wonderful people who are in my class. I always say it and I always mean it. You guys are the best of the best. You're the good people in this world. And thank you very much for finding my work, for aligning with me, for coming here, for being here for, many hour-long classes, and for everyone who's not able to be here during the actual recording of the class, but catches this in the archive. I'm profoundly grateful. Thank you for listening. Thank you for ingesting the ideas that I offer to you. And thank you for the good efforts that you make in order to positively take responsibility in your own life, change and transform the fabric of reality, move in positive directions, change the social dynamic on the planet. You guys are the good ones. So thank you very much. Thank you for your efforts. Now I'm going to take you to the park.